Section 18 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6, by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 18. Kabir's Sloks. 1. Kabir, my rosary is my tongue, on which I repeat God's name. In every age it bringeth peace and comfort to all God's servants. 2. Kabir, everybody laugheth at my caste. I am a sacrifice to this caste, in which I repeat the Creator's name. 3. Kabir, why waverest thou? Why lettest thou thy mind vacillate? God is the Lord of all happiness. Quaff the essence of His name. 4. Kabir, if golden earrings were to be made and rubies set in them, they would appear like burnt reeds if God's name were not in the wearer's heart. 5. Kabir, there are few who, while alive, are dead, and who fearlessly sing God's praises. Whithersoever I look, there is He to save me. 6. Kabir, on the day I am dead, there shall be rejoicing after me. I shall then have met my God, and my friends will worship Him instead of weeping. 7. Kabir, I am the worst of men. Except myself, everybody is good. He who holdeth the same opinion is my friend. 8. Kabir, worldly love came to me in various disguises, but my Guru preserved me. Worldly love then made me obeisance and departed. 9. Kabir, destroy that Maya whose death shall make thee happy. Every one shall then say it is well. No one shall deem it ill. 10. Kabir, when the nights are dark, thieves arise. They run about with nooses for men. Know that they are accursed of God. 11. Kabir, the sandal tree is good even though surrounded by the dak tree. If the latter be near the sandal tree, it will also become fragrant as sandal. 12. Kabir, the bamboo is drowned in its pride. May nobody be drowned so. It may grow near the sandal, but it is never perfumed by it. 13. Kabir, man hath lost his faith through mammon, but mammon will not accompany him. He hath carelessly struck his foot with an axe by his own hand. The following is said to have been written in reply to someone who had invited Kabir to attend a religious fair. 14. Kabir, wherever I wandered, I saw spectacles everywhere. Without the saint who loveth God, the world is in my opinion a desert. 15. Kabir, the hut of the saints is comfortable. The village of the false is a furnace. May fire prey upon that mansion where the name of God is not. Kabir, why weep when a saint dieth, since he is merely going home? Weep rather for the poor infidel who is sold at every shop. 17. Kabir, the infidel is like a dinner of garlic. One may sit in the corner and eat it, but its smell becometh manifest at last. 18. Kabir, the body is a churn, the breath of life its churning staff. The saints eat the butter, the world drinketh the buttermilk. 19. Kabir, the body is the churn, the breath of life the stream of iced water. He who hath churned shall eat the butter, and so shall his helpmates also. 20. Kabir, Maya is a thief, who breaketh into and robbeth the shop. One man, Kabir, who hath chased her in every direction, she shall not rob. 21. Kabir, they who make many friends are not happy in this world, but they who keep their minds fixed on the one God ever enjoy happiness. 22. Kabir, while the world feareth death, my heart is pleased therewith, since it is only by death supreme bliss is obtained. 23. Kabir, when thou obtainest the jewel of God's name, keep it to thyself. For there is no bazaar to sell it in, no connoisseur, no purchaser, no price for it. 24. Kabir, love him who hath made God his master. Learned men, kings, lords of the soil, of what avail is love for them? 25. Kabir, by loving the one God, all other love departeth, whether thou wearest long hair or shavest thy head clean. 26. Kabir, the world is a chamber of soot. Blind are they who enter it, and they become defiled. I am a sacrifice to those who have entered it and come forth clean. 27. Kabir, this body shall depart. If possible, detain it. They who had hundreds of thousands of millions departed barefooted. 28. Kabir, this body shall depart. put it on some road, on which it may either hold converse with saints, or sing God's praises. 29. Kabir, everybody dieth in his turn, but no one even knoweth how to die. When thou diest, so die that thou shalt not have to die again. 30. Kabir, it is difficult to obtain human birth. It cometh not again and again, as the ripe fruit of the forest, when it falleth to the ground, returneth not to the parent branch. Somebody came to visit Kabir and asked him if Kabir, great, was his name. The following, addressed to God, was his reply. 31. It is thou, O God, who art Kabir, great, and whose name is Kabir, great. Man shall only obtain the jewel of the Lord when he despiseth his body. 32. Kabir, utter not idle complaints against God. Nothing shall result from what thou sayest. No one can set aside what the Merciful One doeth. 33. Kabir, nobody who is counterfeit can withstand God's touchstone. Only he who in life is dead can bear its ordeal. 34. Kabir, men wear gaudy robes and eat patel leaves and betel nut, but without the name of the one God they shall be bound and taken to the city of death. 35. Kabir, my boat is old and leaketh in 1,000 chinks. Boats very lightly laden cross over, but those with heavy cargoes founder. 36. Kabir, man's bones burn like firewood, his hair burneth like grass. Kabir is sad on seeing everybody burning. 37. Kabir, be not proud of thy bones wrapped up in skin. They who rode excellent horses and under umbrellas were at last buried in the earth. 38. Kabir, be not proud on seeing thy lofty dwellings. Today or tomorrow thou shalt lie beneath the earth, and the grass shall grow over thee. 39. Kabir, be not proud, let none laugh at the poor. Now thy bark is on the sea, who knoweth what shall happen? 40. Kabir, be not proud on seeing thy beautiful body. Thou shalt leave it today or tomorrow as a serpent its slough. 41. Kabir, if thou must plunder, then plunder, but let thy plunder be the name of God. Otherwise thou shalt afterwards repent when life hath left thy body. 42. Kabir, few have been born who have applied the fire of divine knowledge to their bodies, who have burnt the 5 evil passions, and with the same fervor continued to love God. 43. Is there any one who will sell me his son? Any one who will sell me his daughter? Is there any one who will go into partnership with Kabir and deal in God's name with him? 44. Kabir, I remind thee, O man, and entertain no doubt on the subject. Thou canst not exchange the pleasures thou hast already enjoyed for even a morsel of coarse sugar. 45. Kabir, I first thought that learning was good, then that the Yog philosophy was better than learning, but now I shall never forsake the service of God, even though men revile me for it. 46. Kabir, how can the wretched people who have no divine knowledge in their hearts revile me? Kabir, having abandoned every occupation, continueth to repeat God's name. 47. Kabir, the wanderer's skirt hath caught fire on all sides. The tattered garment hath been burnt and reduced to charcoal, but the flame hath not touched the waist string. 48. Kabir, the tattered garment hath been burnt and reduced to charcoal. The skull hath burst into atoms. The poor Yogi hath had his day, and dust only remaineth where he sat. 49. Kabir, man is like a fish in a little water. The angler casteth in his net. Man shall not escape in this little pond. He ought to think of returning to the ocean. 50. Kabir, leave not the ocean, though it be very brackish. If thou search for shelter in every pond, no one shall call thee good. 51. Kabir, they who had no guru were wafted away. There was no one to stop them. Practice meekness and humility, come what may. 52. Kabir, the bitch of God's saints is good, but the mother of the infidel is bad. The former ever heareth the Lord's name and praises, the latter goeth to commit sin. 53. Kabir, man is like a lean stag. This world is a lake surrounded by verdure. There are hundreds of thousands of hunters, and but one life. How long can it escape? 54. Kabir, if thou make thine abode on the bank of the Ganges, thou mayest drink pure water, but thou shalt not obtain salvation without devotion to God. The great departed have said this. 55. Kabir, me whose mind is pure as Ganges water, God followeth and addresseth. Kabir, Kabir. 56. Kabir, turmeric is yellow and lime white. When both colors are blended, the beloved God is met. 57. Kabir, turmeric then loseth its yellowness, and not a trace of the whiteness of lime remaineth. I am a sacrifice to that love by which tribe and caste and lineage are effaced. 58. Kabir, the door of salvation is narrow, the breadth of the tenth of a grain of mustard. The mind is as large as an elephant. How can it pass through? 59. Kabir, if I meet a true Guru and he kindly favour me, the door of salvation shall be made wide, and I can easily pass through. Kabir's hut once fell, and people asked him to repair it. The following was his reply. 60. Kabir, I have no hut or shed, I have no house or village, I have no caste or name, that God should ask who this man is. 61. Kabir, I desire to die, but when I die, let it be at God's gate, so that God may ask, who is this lying at my door? 62. Kabir, I did not do this, nor will I do it again, nor am I physically able to do it. How do I know what God may have done? Yet it was all Kabir. 63. Kabir, the skin of my body shall be shoes for his feet, from whose mouth in his muttering dream issueth God's name. 64. Kabir, we are puppets of clay, but bear the name of men. Though guests for only 4 days, we occupy very great space. 65. Kabir, I have converted myself into henna and thoroughly ground myself, but even so God never inquired about me and never allowed me to touch his feet. 66. Kabir, the door from which no visitor is repelled, how shall I leave, since such a door there is? 67. Kabir, I was drowning, but the wave of good qualities quickly washed me ashore and saved me. When I saw the bark was rotten, I leaped from it at once. 68. Kabir, the saint is not pleasing to the sinner. The latter cannot bear the worship of God. The fly avoideth the sandal and goeth where there is an evil odour. 69. Kabir, the physician is dead. The patient is dead. The whole world is dead in spiritual ignorance. One person alone, Kabir, for whom none shall weep, is not dead. 70. Kabir, man meditateth not on God. Such great sin attacheth to him. The body is a wooden pot. It cannot be put on the fire a second time. 71. Kabir, it so happened to me that God did what was pleasing to my mind. Why fear death when thou hast taken the red lead in thy hand? 72. Kabir, as one sucketh sugar cane, so ought one to strive most earnestly for virtue. None calleth that man good who is without virtue. 73. Kabir, the body is like an earthen pot filled with water. It will burst today or tomorrow. If thou remember not thy great God, thou shalt be plundered halfway. 74. Kabir, I am God's dog. Modi is my name. There is a string on my neck. Where I am pulled, there I go. 75. Kabir, why displayest thou to men thy wooden rosary? If thou remember not God in thy heart, what availeth this rosary? 76. Kabir, separation from God, like a serpent which yieldeth to no charm, dwelleth in the heart. He who is separated from God shall not live, or if he do, he shall become insane. 77. Kabir, the philosopher's stone and sandal have one good property in common. By the touch of the former iron becometh the best metal. By the touch of the latter, inodorous wood is perfumed. 78. Kabir, death's club is bad. It cannot be endured. I have met a holy man, and he hath attached me to his skirt. 79. Kabir, the physician, saith, I am the only good physician. All medicines are in my power. This thing, life, is God's property. He taketh it when he pleaseth. 80. Kabir, take and beat thy drum for 10 days. This world is like the meeting on a riverboat of persons who shall never meet again. 81. Kabir, were I to make the 7 oceans my ink, the trees of the forest my pens, and the earth my paper, I should not succeed in writing God's praises. 82. Kabir, what harm can my weaver caste do me, since God dwelleth in my heart? God hath embraced Kabir and released him from all his entanglements. 83. Kabir, there are few willing to burn their own houses, destroy their 5 children, and concentrate their love on God. 84. Kabir, there are few who will set fire to their own bodies. Fools understand not, though Kabir continueth to shout to them. 85. Kabir, the Sati mounted on the pyre, crieth out, Here, my friends, on this cremation ground, as people have all departed, so do we at last. 86. Kabir, the mind is a bird which flieth and flieth in every direction. Man is rewarded according to the company he keepeth. 87. Kabir, the position thou wast seeking thou hast found. Thou hast changed into God, whom thou thoughtest was different. 88. Kabir, I am dying of evil company like the plantain near the wild caper. The latter waveth and the former is pierced by its thorns, so avoid the apostate. 89. Kabir, men affect to travel with the burden of other men's sins on their heads. Why fear they not the burden of their own, since the road in front of them is difficult to travel? 90. Kabir, a standing forest tree which is burning calleth out, may I not fall into the power of the smith who would burn me again in his forge. One day Kabir was sitting on the bank of the Ganges. He saw a hunter who had shot a deer. The deer had two young ones in her womb. Both these died. The buck then came and was also shot by the hunter. The latter went to pick up the animal and was mortally bitten by a snake. The hunter's wife then came and died through grief, or because the snake bit her too. Thus died 4 males and 2 females. 91. Kabir, on the death of 1, 2 died. On the death of 2, 4. On the death of 4, 6 died, 4 males and 2 females. 92. Kabir hath seen and searched the world, but found no abiding place anywhere. Why doth he who hath not thought of God's name lose himself in other speculations? 93. Kabir, associate with the saint, he will save thee at last. Associate not with the infidel, his company will be thy ruin. 94. Kabir, knowing that God is everywhere diffused in the world, I have remembered him in this life. They who have thought not of God's name have been born in vain. 95. Kabir, hope in God. All other hope is hopeless. They who are bereft of God's name shall admit its power when they fall into hell. 96. Kabir hath made many disciples and followers, but hath not made God his friend. He set out to meet God, but his heart failed him halfway. 97. Kabir, what shall poor man do if God assist him not? Whatever branch I put my foot on bendeth beneath me. 98. Kabir, sand shall fall into the mouths of those who practice not what they preach to others. They watch others' property while their own fields are being eaten up. 99. Kabir, associate with holy men, even though thou eat only barley bran. What will be, will be. Associate not with the apostate, even though he give thee better fare. 100. Kabir, by association with the saints, the love of God doubleth day by day. The infidel is like a black blanket. He becometh not white by washing. 101. Kabir, thou hast not shaved thy heart. Why shave thy hair? Man's sins are the work of his heart. Shaving the head is out of place. 102. Kabir, forsake not God. If thy body and wealth must go, let them go. They whose hearts are devoted to God's lotus feet shall be absorbed in his name. 103. Kabir, the strings of the instrument we play upon are all broken. What can the poor instrument do when the player hath departed? 104. Kabir, shave the mother of that Guru from whom doubt departeth not. He has drowned himself in the 4 Veds, and he drowneth his disciples therein. 105. Kabir, man concealeth all the sins he committeth, but at last they are all disclosed when Dharmraj maketh his inquiry. 106. Kabir, ceasing to remember God, thou hast reared a numerous family. Thou continuest to practice thine avocations, though thy brethren and relations are no more. 107. Kabir, the woman who, ceasing to remember God, goes to awake at night to practice witchcraft shall be born again as a serpent and eat her own offspring. 108. Kabir, the woman who, ceasing to remember God, fasteth in honor of Hoy, shall be born again as a donkey and carry a weight of 4 mans. 109. Kabir, very great skill is required to utter God's name in the heart. If the acrobat who performeth on the high pole fall, he cannot survive. 110. Kabir, blessed is his mouth who uttereth God's name. His whole village shall be blessed, to say nothing of the poor creature himself. 111. Kabir, the family is fortunate in which a slave of God is born. The family in which a slave of God is not born shall be fruitless as the dak tree. 112. Kabir has seen hundreds of thousands of horses, elephants, and carriages and banners wave as thick as clouds. Begging when the days pass and remembering God is better than all this state. 113. Kabir, I have traversed the whole world with my drum on my shoulder. I have seen and carefully examined everything, and I find no one hath a friend. 114. Kabir, pearls are scattered on the road. A blind man came that way and saw them not. Without the light of the Lord of the world, everybody, like the blind man, passeth the pearls by. It is said that Kamal, Kabir's son, met a rich leper who was going in despair to drown himself in the Ganges. Kamal begged him to desist and promised to cure him. Kamal took up some Ganges water in the palm of his hand, breathed on it, repeated the name of God, and then threw the water on the leper. The latter was instantaneously cured. He rewarded Kamal with a large gift of money. In the following couplet, Kabir censures his son for having accepted it. 115. Kabir's family was ruined when his son Kamal was born. Ceasing to remember God, he brought home wealth. 116. Kabir, go to meet a homely man, but take no one with thee. Do not go back. Go on, come what may. 117. Bind not thyself, O Kabir, with the rope by which the world is bound. As salt is lost in flour, so shall this gold-like body disappear. 118. Kabir, the soul shall fly away and the body be buried. Man knoweth not when his time shall come, yet even now he will not let covetousness escape from his eyes. 119. Kabir, may I behold thee, O God, with mine eyes, hear thy name with mine ears, utter thy name with my tongue, and put thy lotus feet within my heart. 120. Kabir hath escaped from heaven and hell by the favour of the true Guru. I bask for ever and ever in the joy of God's lotus feet. 121. Kabir, say, how can I guess the joy of God's lotus feet? Their beauty cannot be described. They can only be realized when seen. 122. Kabir, even if I see them, to whom shall I describe them? No one would be satisfied with my words. God is his own parallel. I dwell in the delight of singing his praises. 123. Kabir, the kulang pecketh its food, and at the same time remembereth its young. It pecketh and pecketh and pecketh, and remembereth its young. As its young are dear to the kulang, so is worldly love to the mind. 124. Kabir, the sky is overcast with clouds. Lakes and tanks are filled with rainwater. Yet what shall be the condition of those who choose to remain thirsty as the chatrik? 125. Kabir, the sheldrake which at night is separated from her mate meeteth him in the morning, but the man who is separated from God meeteth him again neither in the morning nor in the evening. 126. Kabir, O shell, remain in the ocean. If thou leave it, thou shalt have to scream at sunrise at every temple. 127. Kabir, what dost thou, O man, by sleeping? Arise and weep through fear of hell and its torments. How can he whose dwelling is in the grave sleep in peace? 128. Kabir, what dost thou by sleeping? Why not arise and repeat God's name? One day thou shalt sleep stretched out at full length in the grave. 129. Kabir, what dost thou by sleeping? Awake, arise, attach thyself to him from whom thou art separated. 130. Kabir, leave not the way of holy men, walk on their road, purify thyself by the sight of them, and repeat God's name on meeting them. 131. Kabir, associate not with the infidel, flee far away from him. If thou touch a black pot, some filth shall attach to thee. 132. Kabir, thou hast not thought of God, and old age hath come upon thee. When the door of thy house is on fire, what can be taken out and saved? 133. Kabir, the work which the Creator did was accomplished once for all. There is no God but him, the one Creator. 134. Kabir, when the fruit trees begin to bear fruit, and the mango beginneth to ripen, the fruit reacheth its owner, if meantime the crows have not eaten it. 135. Kabir, men purchase and worship an idol, and obstinately go on pilgrimages. Like actors, they imitate one another, but they only err and lose their way. 136. Kabir, men have turned a stone into God. Everybody worshippeth it. They who abide in this belief are drowned in the sable stream. 137. Kabir, books form a prison, the doors of which are the writing thereon. Stones have drowned the world. Pandits have pillaged the road. 138. Kabir, do now the work of tomorrow, and if thou do it now, do it at once. Nothing can be done hereafter when death standeth over thy head. 139. Kabir, I have seen such and such a person, polished like wax. He appeareth quick and very virtuous, but he is without understanding and unholy. 140. Kabir, death will not disgrace mine understanding, since I have repeated the name of the Cherisher, who created him. 141. Kabir, God is as musk. All his saints are as the bumblebees around it. The more Kabir serveth, the more God dwelleth in his heart. 142. Kabir, man falleth into the clutches of family. God is left in the background. Dharm Raja's myrmidons fall on man in the midst of his pomp. 143. Kabir, better than an infidel is a pig which keepeth the village clean. When the poor infidel dieth, nobody will mention him. 144. Kabir, men have amassed hundreds of thousands and millions, kari by kari, but when departing they get nothing. Even their waist cloths are taken from them. 145. Kabir, were one to be a follower of Vishnu and wear a beautiful necklace, what would it avail him? He may be externally gold 12 times purified, but within he is only stuffed with wax. 146. Kabir, become the broken stones of the road. Lay aside thine intellectual pride. If such a servant there be, he shall meet God. 147. Kabir, but what would it avail to be the broken stones? They would hurt the traveller's feet. O God, thy servant should be as the dust of the earth. 148. Kabir, but what would it avail to be dust which flieth and falleth on men's bodies? The servant of God ought to be like water which cleanseth all the limbs. 149. Kabir, but what would it avail to be water? It becometh cold or hot according to the season. Every servant of God ought to be perfect like God himself. 150. Flags wave on the tops of lofty mansions full of gold and of women. Better than all are the bread of alms and singing God's praises in the company of his saints. 151. Kabir, the wilderness where God is worshipped is better than a city. The place without the beloved God is, in my opinion, as the city of death. 152. At the ferry of Sahat-Sun, where the Ganges and the Jamna meet, Kabir hath built a hut where saints and men of God seek the way. 153. Kabir, were man to continue to the end loving God as he was born, millions of precious stones, to say nothing of one poor diamond, would not be equal to him. 154. Kabir, I have seen a strange thing. A diamond was sold in a shop. In the absence of a purchaser who knew its worth, it went for a cowrie. 155. Kabir, where there is divine knowledge, there is virtue. Where there is falsehood, there is sin. Where there is covetousness, there is death. Where there is forgiveness, there is God himself. 156. Kabir, what availeth it to abandon worldly love, if pride be not also abandoned? Munis and their spiritual superiors perished by pride. Their pride ate them all up. 157. Kabir, a true Guru met me and shot one word at me. When it struck me, I fell to the earth. There was a hole made in my heart. 158. Kabir, what can the true Guru do if his disciples be at fault? Not one word of his impresseth the spiritually blind. It is like blowing into a bamboo. 159. Kabir, the lady of a monarch who possesseth horses, elephants, and carriages in abundance, is not equal to the female water carrier of a saint of God. 160. Question. O Kabir, why revilest thou the king's lady? Why honorest thou God's handmaiden? Answer. The former parteth her hair with evil intentions. The latter remembereth God's name. 161. Kabir, I propped myself up with God's name and steadied myself. The true Guru gave me courage. I purchased large diamonds on the bank of Lake Mansarovar. 162. Kabir, God is the diamond, God's servant, the jeweler, who hath taken the gem and set up a shop for it. As soon as an assayer is found, the price of the diamond shall be ascertained. 163. Kabir, as thou rememberest God when occasion requireth, so remember him always. Make thine abode in the immortal city. God will restore the wealth thou hast lost. 164. Kabir, for worship two beings are necessary, one the saint and the other God. God who bestoweth salvation, and the saint who causeth us to repeat his name. 165. Kabir, crowds followed the Pandits by the way they went. The one road to God by which Kabir hath been ascending is difficult. 166. Kabir, man acteth out of regard for his family, and thus dieth from worldly troubles. Who hath family pride when he is placed on the cremation ground? 167. Kabir, O wretched people, ye shall be ruined through your great regard for the opinion of others. Know that the fate of your neighbours shall also be yours. 168. Kabir, good is the meal of alms made of different kinds of corn. I have no claim on any one for it. Great is the country and great its government. 169. Kabir, heart burning ariseth from claims. He who hath no claim is without anxiety. He who hath no claim deemeth Indar poor in comparison with himself. 170. Kabir, the lake is filled to the brim, yet few can drink the water. With great good fortune hast thou found it. Drink it in handfuls, Kabir. 171. Kabir, as the stars pass away in the morning, so doth this body pass away, but the two letters of God's name pass not away. Kabir holdeth them fast. 172. Kabir, the house of wood is on fire on all sides. The Pandits perish in the fire, while the illiterate escape. 173. Kabir, dispel doubts, leave the books of the Pandits. Having searched the Sanskrit books, fix thy thoughts on God's feet. 174. Kabir, saints abandon not their saintship, even though they meet millions who are not saints. Even though sandal be entwined with serpents, it loseth not its coolness. 175. Kabir, the mind becometh cool when it hath obtained the knowledge of God. The fire which burneth the world is as water to God's servant. 176. This world is the Creator's play. Hardly any one understandeth this. The master himself or the slave at his court understandeth it. 177. Kabir, it is well for me that I felt the fear of God and forgot all else. From hail I melted into water, and flowing on I blended with the ocean. 178. Kabir, God having collected dust, made bodies like a physician's powders, spectacles for 4 days, but after all they are only dust. 179. Kabir, all bodies are as the rising and setting of the sun and moon, but if they meet not God and the Guru, they all turn into dust again. 180. Where the fearless one is, there is no fear of others. Where there is fear, there God is not. Kabir speaketh thus deliberately. O saints, give me willing ear. 181. Kabir, they who know naught pass their time in the sleep of peace, while they who think they know have their fill of trouble. 182. Kabir, they who are subdued by worldly love utter many cries, but different is the cry of the purr. Kabir, who was struck on a vulnerable spot, fell where he stood. 183. Kabir, slight is the stroke of a lance. Though struck by it, man may breathe for a time, but he who can endure the stroke of the word is a guru, and I am his slave. 184. Kabir, why, O mullah, ascendest thou the minaret? The Lord is not deaf. Search within thy heart for him for whose sake thou callest to prayer. 185. Why doth the Shaikh, who is without resignation, perform a pilgrimage to the Kaaba? Kabir, how can God be for him whose heart is not firm in his faith? 186. Kabir, offer thy homage to God, by remembering whom trouble shall depart. The Lord will be manifest in thy heart, and the fire which burneth thee shall be extinguished. 187. Kabir, to use force is tyranny, though thou call it lawful. When thine accounts are called for at God's office, what shall be thy condition? 188. Kabir, an excellent dinner is khichari, seasoned with sufficient salt to make it palatable. Who would cut his own throat by eating meat with his bread? 189. Kabir, know that the Guru will have touched thy heart when worldly love and ambition have been effaced. Joy and sorrow shall not then affect thee. Thou shalt become God himself. 190. Kabir, there are different ways of saying Ram. There is one point to be considered. He whom everybody calleth Ram was only a mountebank. 191. Kabir, call him Ram who is omnipresent. We must discriminate in mentioning the two Rams. The one Ram, God, is contained in all things. The other, Ram Chandar, is only contained in one thing, himself. 192. Kabir, in the house in which saints are not served, God is not served. That house is like a cremation ground, and ghosts dwell therein. 193. Kabir, I have become dumb, insane, deaf, and lame from the stroke of the true Guru's arrow. 194. Kabir, the brave true Guru, shot an arrow at me. On its striking me, I fell to the ground with a hole in my heart. 195. Kabir, the pure rain of heaven hath fallen on barren soil. Know that without good association it becometh like the ashes of a furnace. 196. But Kabir, when the pure rain of heaven meeteth absorbing soil, it cannot be removed, however much clever men may worry themselves. 197. Kabir, I was going on a pilgrimage to the Kaaba, and I met God on the way. The Lord fell a quarreling with me. Who ordered thee to go to that place? 198. Kabir, I have often made the pilgrimage to the Kaaba. How many times, O Kabir? O my master, what fault have I committed that thou wilt not speak to me? 199. Kabir, when God produceth his record, what shall be the fate of him who violently killeth animals and calleth it lawful? 200. Kabir, to use violence is tyranny. God will call for thy defence. When thine account is produced from his office, thou shalt be beaten on the mouth. 201. Kabir, to render thine account is easy if thy heart be pure. In that true court no one shall molest thee. 202. Saith Kabir, O duality in earth and heaven, thou art very difficult to destroy. The 6 religious systems and the 84 Sidhs are involved in doubt. 203. Kabir, whatever there is in me is not mine. Whatever there is thine, O God. If thine own property be rendered unto thee, what doth it cost me? 204. Kabir, by repeating Thou, Thou, I have become Thou, O God. I have not remained in myself. When the difference between Thee and me was removed, wherever I looked, there wast Thou. 205. Kabir, man meditateth sin and entertaineth delusive hopes. None of his desires is satisfied. He departeth in despair. 206. Kabir, he who remembereth God is happy in this world. He whom the Creator protecteth wavereth not either in this world or the next. 207. Kabir, I was being pressed like a handful of sesame when the true Guru rescued me. He came and appeared to me by primal and ancient destiny. 208. Kabir, my days have been spent in evading payment of my debts to God. Interest goeth on increasing. I worship not God, nor had I my account torn up when death arrived. Guru Arjan has here inserted the 3 following couplets. 209. Kabir, man is a barking dog which runneth after carrion. By grace I have obtained the true Guru who hath delivered me. 210. Kabir, the earth belongeth to the holy, but thieves have taken possession of it. The earth feeleth not their weight, to them it is clear gain. 211. Kabir, on account of the husk rice is beaten with a mallet. So when men sit in bad company, Dharmraj shall call them to account. Here Kabir's couplets continue. 212. O Namdev, worldly love hath bewitched thee, said his friend Trilokchan. Why printest thou chintzes and thinkest not on God? 213. Namdev replied, repeat God's name with thy lips, O Trilokchan. Perform all thy duties with thy hands and feet, but let thy heart be with God. Guru Arjan again interposes. 214. O Kabir, no one hath any concern with me, nor I with any one. I am contained in Him who hath created this world. Kabir's instructions are resumed. 215. Kabir, when flour hath fallen into the mud, none of it is saved. It is that which is chewed while being ground that availeth. 216. Kabir, man knoweth everything, and yet he knowingly committeth sin. What advantage is it to a man to have a lamp in his hand if he fall into a well? 217. Kabir, my love is for the friend. Foolish people try to dissuade me. How can it be proper to break with him to whom belong my life and soul? 218. Kabir, why killest thou thyself on account of houses and mansions and their decoration, when 3½ cubits, or at most 3¾ shall be thy lot? 219. Kabir, if God do not what I desire, what availeth my desiring it? God doeth what He Himself desireth, not what I desire. The following couplet of Guru Amar Das is here found. 220. God produceth anxiety in man, and also freeth him therefrom. Nanak, praise Him who taketh care of all. A couplet of Guru Arjan here follows. 221. Kabir, man thinketh not of God. He goeth astray through greed. He dieth committing sin, and his life is at an end in a moment. Here Kabir's couplets continue. 222. Kabir, the body is a frail vessel of only frail metal. If thou wish to make it permanent, worship God, otherwise it will perish. 223. Kabir, call out the name of God, sleep not listlessly. By calling out night and day, God may sometime hear thy cries. 224. Kabir, the body is a plantain grove, the heart an elephant maddened by passion which breaketh it down. The jewel of divine knowledge is the goad, and a rare saint the tamer of the elephant. 225. Kabir, God's name is a jewel, the mouth a purse to hold it. Open it before him who can appreciate the jewel. If any purchaser be found, he may take it at a high price. 226. Kabir, man knoweth not God's name while bringing up a numerous family. He dieth in the midst of his worldly duties, and is not heard of in the outer world. 227. Kabir, in the twinkling of an eye, and in a moment life passeth away. Since the mind freeth not itself from entanglements, death beateth his drum, and leadeth away his victim in triumph. 228. Kabir, God is as a tree, abandonment of the world as its fruit, the saint who hath abandoned bootless discussions as its shade. 229. Kabir, plant the seed of such a tree as shall bear perennial fruit, whose shade shall be cool, whose fruit shall be profuse, and on which birds shall play. 230. Kabir, the giver is a tree whose fruit is mercy, which sheddeth favours on men. When the birds which it sheltereth migrate, they say, O tree, mayest thou be fruitful. 231. Kabir, association with saints is obtained by destiny. By such association the boon of salvation is obtained, and the difficult road to God not obstructed. 232. Kabir, even for a gari, half a gari, or half that again, converse held with the saints is clear gain. 233. Kabir, the mortals who eat bhang and fish and drink wine shall all go to hell, whatever pilgrimages, fastings, and daily devotion they may perform. 234. Kabir, if I cast down mine eyes and take the Friend into my heart, I enjoy every pleasure with my beloved, and I disclose this to no one. The fifth Guru here interposes. 235. For the 8 watches, the 64 gharis of the day, my soul looketh towards thee, O God. Why cast down mine eyes, since I behold the beloved in every heart? 236. Hear, my companions, either my soul dwelleth in my beloved, or my beloved in my soul. I know not whether my soul is in my heart, or my beloved dwelleth in my soul. 237. Kabir, the Brahman, is the Guru of the world, but he is not the Guru of the saints. He killeth himself over the perplexities of the 4 Veds. 238. God is as sugar scattered in the sand, but the elephant cannot pick it up. Saith Kabir, the Guru gave this excellent advice: become an ant and eat it. 239. Kabir, if thou desire the beloved, cut off thy head and make it into a ball. While playing, attain such a state of ecstasy that thou shalt be satisfied with whatever happeneth thee. 240. Kabir, if thou desire the beloved, play with a true Guru. If unripe oil seeds be pressed, neither oil cake nor oil will be obtained. Here a couplet of Namdev is introduced. 241. Man searching for God stumbleth like a blind man, and recognizeth not the saint. Saith Namdev, how shalt thou obtain God without the mediation of his saints? The following lines of Rav Das are here inserted. 242. He who forsaking God the diamond yearneth for other gods shall go to hell. Verily, saith Rav Das. 243. O Kabir, if thou embrace a domestic life, act honestly, otherwise abandon the world. But if any one, having abandoned the world, again become entangled with it, great indeed shall be his misfortune. End of section 18. Section 19 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6 by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 19. Rav Das. Rav Das is the author of many hymns in the Granth Sahib. He was certainly a disciple of Ramanand and a contemporary of Kabir, but otherwise there is nothing known regarding his precise date, parentage, or place of birth. When Rav Das arrived at years of discretion, he began to wait on saints. He used to present them with everything he could procure from his father's house. His father was displeased at this, and gave him a separate place of residence. Though his father's wealth and means were considerable, yet he gave nothing whatever to his son. The latter, who by this time had entered the married state, supported himself and his wife by making shoes, and lived very happily. Whenever he saw a holy man, he supplied him gratuitously with covering for his feet. He afterwards built a hut, set up in it an idol which he had made from a hide, and applied himself to its worship. When he was reproached for making an idol out of a hide, he defended himself by descanting on the various advantages of hides. Drums used in worship were made from hides. The cow held sacred by Hindus had a hide. God is contained in animals which have hides, etc., etc. Ram Das was ever immersed in his devotions, a circumstance which led to the abandonment of his trade and the deterioration of his circumstances. He soon presented all the external marks of poverty and hard life, yet his heart was glad and happy in the contemplation of God. It was during this period of distress that a holy man desired to render him assistance. Ram Das gave him bread to eat and lavished every attention on him. His visitor in return presented him with a philosopher's stone, explained its qualities, and told him to keep it carefully. Ram Das replied that he did not require it, as his property and wealth consisted in the name of God. When the visitor saw that Ram Das absolutely coveted nothing, he implored him to accept the philosopher's stone. Ram Das told him he might leave it in the thatch of his house, by which he meant that the article was not worth acceptance. The visitor obeyed Ram Das and departed. On that occasion Ram Das composed the following hymn: God's name is the great wealth of God's saints. Day by day it increaseth, and in no way decreaseth. Nothing can steal it, either by day or night. Its possessor sleepeth secure in his home. O God, what need of a stone hath he who possesseth this wealth? After the lapse of 13 months, the visitor returned and found Ram Das in the same circumstances as before. He asked him what had become of the philosopher's stone. Ram Das replied, "It must be where thou didst put it. I've been afraid to touch it." Upon this the visitor took it from the thatch and departed, fully satisfied that Ram Das desired no earthly wealth. One day the saint found 5 gold coins in a basket employed to hold accessories of worship. The result was that he began to fear even devotion to God, lest it might bring him wealth. Then God said to him in a vision, "Although thou absolutely desirest nothing, yet accept the wealth I give thee now." Ram Das promised to do so. A pious admirer gave him money with which he built a sara, or rest house, wherein he entertained holy men. He then built a temple, and so decorated it with a canopy, fringes, cords of gold lace, wall lamps, chandeliers, etc., that visitors on seeing its beauty became enchanted. After that Ram Das built a 2-storied house for himself on the site of the hut he had hitherto used as a temple, and there he continued to worship with perfect love. Ram Das experienced the ordinary fate of men, suddenly enriched. The Brahmans, through envy and jealousy, complained to the king of Banaras that there was no authority in the Shastars for a shoemaker to make an image of God. Yet Ram Das had, without any fear or compunction, set up such an image, and was worshipping it and offering it homage. He ought therefore to be made to suffer for his presumption. The king summoned Ram Das, but was so much impressed with the dignity and reasonableness of his defense that he found no difficulty in immediately declaring him guiltless of any offense against religion. Yali, the queen of Chittor, hearing of Ram Das's fame, visited him and became a disciple of his. At this her attendant Brahmans waxed highly indignant. They said that the queen had lost her reason and they went and complained of her to the Rana, her husband, who had accompanied her to Banaras. He sent for Ram Das and heard the charges of the assembled Brahmans against him. They represented the supreme importance of caste and the impropriety of allowing a shoemaker to usurp a higher spiritual or social position than that in which he had been born. Ram Das replied, "What is dear to God is devotion. He payeth no heed to caste." Upon this the Brahmans proposed to refer the matter to the arbitrament of prayer. They read the Veds for 3 full hours and repeated many spells, but did not succeed in inducing God to persuade the Rana of Ram Das's guilt. When it came to Ram Das's turn, he said, "O great king, be true to thy name of pardoner of sinners." He then sang a couple of stanzas. The first line of the first stanza is, "O come without delay, or call me unto thee." The first lines of the second stanza are, "O God of gods, I thy protection crave. Have mercy on me, knowing me thy slave." The Rana was easily convinced of Ram Das's innocence and expressed himself accordingly. Upon this, it is said, all present became believers in Ram Das's sanctity. After that, Queen Yali left Banaras and returned to her kingdom, where she decided on holding a Thanksgiving festival. With great modesty and humility, she invited Ram Das to be pleased to attend it. He accepted her invitation and went to Chittor. His visit afforded her intense pleasure. She distributed a large sum of money in alms on the occasion, and invited the principal Brahmans of her state to meet the holy man. The Brahmans knew that the queen's guru had been a shoemaker, and it would be better for them to take raw provisions of their own and cook them than partake of food proffered by the queen. They accordingly had food cooked for themselves, but when they sat down to eat it, it is said they saw Ram Das seated between every two of them. They then believed in his divine mission and fell at his feet. It is stated that he gained many disciples on that occasion. Ram Das composed the following after the entertainment: "Clever men, I am notoriously a tanner by caste, but in my heart I meditate on God. If wine be made even with Ganges water, you holy men will not drink it. But if wine which is impure or other liquid be put into Ganges water, the latter will not be altered. The palmyra (palm tree), sirs, is admittedly impure, as its leaves are also deemed. But if God's words be written thereon, men will worship it and bow before it. My trade is dressing and cutting leather, and daily removing dead cattle round about Banaras. Yet prominent Brahmans now prostrate themselves before me, since I, the slave Ram Das, have sought the shelter of thy name, O God." Ram Das is said to have been such a perfect saint of God that his conversation and poetry were like suns to dispel the darkness of doubt and infidelity. He performed the meritorious acts prescribed in the Veds and the Shastars. Orientals believe that if milk mixed with water be placed before a swan, it can by its peculiar bill separate both and drink only the milk. In the same way, Ram Das selected virtue from vice, made choice of good acts, and avoided things forbidden. The following compositions of Ram Das are found in the Granth Sahib. End of Section 19. Section 20 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6 by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 20, Hymns of Ram Das. God being light and the soul also light, there is no difference between them, except that the soul is encumbered with a body. Sri Rag, between thee and me, between me and thee, what difference can there be? The same is between gold and the bracelet, between water and its ripples. If I did not commit sin, O Eternal One, how shouldst thou have gained the name of Purifier of sinners? Thou who art the Lord, art the searcher of hearts. The servant is known from his master, and the master from his servant. Grant me the wisdom to worship thee with my body. Ram Das, some rare person who destroyeth his evil passions, may explain this. Though Ram Das's birth is low, he is a candidate for God's favour. Gauri 1. My associations are low. I think of it day and night. My birth is mean. Mine acts are crooked. O God, Lord of the earth, giver of life to men, forget me not. I am thy slave. Remove my troubles. Make thy servant full of love for thee. I will not forsake thy feet, even though my body perish tomorrow. Saith Ram Das, I seek thy protection, O God. Quickly come to thy servant. Delay not. Ram Das's conception of heaven 2. There is a city named Beghampur, where pain and sorrow find no place. There is no fear of tribute or of tax. There is nor care, nor sin, nor dread, nor death. Now have I found an excellent abode, where ceaseless happiness doth reign, my friends. There firm and for aye is sovereignty of God. No second or third is there adored. He ruleth alone. Inhabited and ever famous is that city. Its people are full dowered with wealth. Theirs it is to wander as they please. None restraineth them known in the palace, saith Ram Das, emancipated tanner. My friends become my fellow citizens there. It is said that a Labana offered an ox to Ram Das. On refusing the present, the saint wrote the following. 3. The road to God is very difficult and steep, and I've already one useless ox. My one prayer to God is, preserve my capital, O God. Is there any merchant of God who will join me? My goods are laden and about to start. I am a merchant of God and deal in divine knowledge. The wealth I have loaded is God's name. The world hath loaded poison. Ye recording angels, who know this world and the next, write whatever nonsense you please about me. I care not. The club of death will not touch me, since I have cast away all entanglements. This world is like the fleeting color of a safflower, but the color of my God is the permanent dye of matter, saith the tanner Ram Das. Ram Das prays for divine favour. 4. As a pit full of frogs, which know nothing of different countries, so my mind, infatuated with evil passions, taketh no thought of this world or the next. O Lord of all the world, grant me a sight of thee for a moment. My mind is not clear, O God, and so I cannot understand thy condition. Take pity on me, that my doubts may be dispelled, and teach me right understanding. Even supreme yogis cannot explain thine attributes, which are beyond expression. The tanner Ram Das prayeth for thy love and service. The following was Ram Das's reply to a holy man who asked the questions contained in the hymn. 5. In the Sat age was truth, in the Treta sacrifice, and in the Dwapar the performance of worship. In the 3 ages these 3 observances were established, but in the Kal age the Name is the only support. How shall I be saved? No one explaineth to me how my transmigration may cease. There are many forms of religion described, but every one appeareth to adopt his own. What are those acts by which I may be saved, and by the performance of which I may obtain all things? If what are merits and what demerits be decided by listening to the Veds and Purans, doubt shall result. Doubt shall thus ever dwell in the heart. Who shall dispel pride? Man washeth his body with water, but in his heart there is evil of every description. How shall purity result? My purity is such as the elephant practiseth, as by the sun's light night departeth, as all the world knoweth. As copper, when touched by the philosopher's stone, at once becometh gold, so if the supreme philosopher's stone, the Guru, be found by destiny, the perturbed mind shall meet God who is in the heart, and the doors of adamant shall be opened. The doubts, the entanglements, and the sins of him who maketh the way of devotion firm in his heart shall be cut away. He shall restrain his mind, obtain happiness, and meditate on him alone, who possesseth all qualities and yet possesseth none. Many efforts have I made to ward off the noose of doubt, but however much I tried, I did not succeed. Love and devotion have not sprung up in me, therefore Rav Das is sad. Man is a prey to all the five senses and their attendant passions, and not to one predominating and overmastering sense alone, like the lower animals. Hence the following hymn: Asa. 1. The deer, the fish, the bumblebee, the moth, and the elephant perish, each for one sense. So what hope is there for him who, like man, hath five implacable enemies? O God, man loveth ignorance, his lamp of discrimination hath grown dim. The thoughtless are born again as creeping things which distinguish not between good and evil. They have now obtained human birth, so difficult to obtain, and yet in it they associate with the base. Men and lower animals, wherever they are born subject to their previous acts, and the noose of death which hangeth over them can by no means be warded off. Rav Das, renounce worldly love, dispel doubt, and make the Guru's divine knowledge thy religious fervour. O thou who dispellest thy worshippers' fear, grant me supreme bliss at last. Rav Das prays for the saints' virtues and devotion. 2. The company of the saints who are thine image is my life. Through the divine knowledge of the Guru, I recognize the saints as gods of gods. Grant me the company of the saints, a taste for the saints' converse, the saints' love, O God of gods, the saints' good works, and the saints' way, that I may become attached to what they are attached. I pray for one thing more, the miraculous gem of devotion. Show me not the wicked and the sinner. Between the saints and the infinite there is no difference. Rav Das saith, he who knoweth this is wise. Rav Das is exalted by holy association. 3. Thou art sandal, I am the poor Palma Christi plant, I dwell near thee. From a humble shrub I have become a lofty tree. Thine excellent perfume abideth in me. O God, I have sought the protection of thy true congregation. I am without virtues. Thou art beneficent. Thou art white and yellow twisted silk. We are the poor worms who toil and make it. O God, may I continue to associate with the saints as the bee with the honey. My caste is low, my lineage low, and low is my birth. I have not served my sovereign God, saith the tanner Rav Das. For God's love, Rav Das would sacrifice himself. 4. What would it matter were my body to be cut in pieces? Thy slave, O God, only feareth that thy love may depart. Thy lotus feet are the home of my heart. By drinking the nectar of his name, I have found God, who is my wealth. Prosperity, adversity, worldly love, and wealth screen God from man. In them thy servant is not absorbed. Thy slave is bound by the rope of thy love. Saith Rav Das, what advantage is it to escape therefrom? God's name saves saints and sinners. 5. God, 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 God. By remembering God, saints and sinners are saved. Through the name of God, Kabir became renowned, and the accounts of his sins of many births were torn up. Namdev, as in duty bound, gave milk to God to drink, wherefore he had not the pain of being born again in the world. The slave Rav Das is dyed with God's love, and so through the favour of the Guru he shall not go to hell. They who think not of God shall be condemned. 6. How man, a puppet of clay, danceth, he looketh and looketh, heareth, speaketh, runneth about. When he acquireth anything he is proud, but when his wealth is gone he beginneth to weep. In thought, word, and deed he is fascinated by pleasures, so when he perisheth he is contained somewhere else. Saith Ram Das, the world is a play. My brethren, I have established loving relations with the true actor. The object of the following hymn is to show that nothing offered to God by idolaters, even according to their own ideas, is pure, and that the true offering to God is the sincere heart. Guyari. The calf hath defiled the milk in the cow's udder by tasting it. The bumblebee hath spoiled the flowers, and the fish the water. My mother, where shall I find anything to offer in God's worship? I cannot find other flowers superior to these. Serpents twine round the sandal tree. Poison and ambrosia dwell together. Incense, lamps, and consecrated bread are polluted. How shall thy slave perform thy worship? Let me dedicate and offer my body and soul as my worship. Thus by the Guru's favour shall I find the Pure One. I cannot perform thine adoration and worship according to Hindu rites. Saith Ram Das, in what condition am I? Ram Das concludes that everything is God. Soroth 1. When there was egoism in me, thou wert not with me. Now that thou art with me, there is no egoism. Huge waves are raised by the wind in the ocean, but they are only water in water. O God, what shall I say? Through illusion things are not as they are supposed to be. A king sleepeth on his throne. In a dream he becometh a beggar. He suffereth pain at losing his empire, though it is intact. Such hath been my condition. Like the story of the rope and the serpent, I have now had the secret explained to me. On seeing several bracelets, I erroneously supposed that they were distinct from the gold, but what I then said I now say no longer. In all things the one Lord assumeth various shapes. God sporteth in all hearts. Saith Ram Das, God is nearer to us than our hands and feet. It is what taketh place by His will that taketh place. Ram Das so loves God that he feels he has a claim on His mercy. 2. When thou didst bind us with a noose of illusion, we bound thee with a bond of love. Try to release thyself. We have been released by adoring thee. O God, thou knowest how we feel towards thee. Now what wilt thou do with us, such being our love for thee? Man catcheth a fish, sliceth it, cutteth it up, and cooketh it in various ways. He biteth and eateth it, still it forgetteth not the water. The supreme ruler is no man's heritage. He belongeth to him who loveth him. Though the screen of illusion be spread over the whole world, yet it troubleth not the saint. Saith Ram Das, my devotion to the one God hath increased. To whom shall I tell this now? Shall I still suffer misery for the removal of which I worship thee? Ram Das on introspection finds himself wanting. 3. I obtained this birth difficult of attainment as the reward of merit, but it passeth away in vain on account of my want of discrimination. Say, of what account would a palace and a throne like King Indar's be without devotion to God? I have not thought of the pleasure in the supreme God's name, a pleasure in which all other pleasures are forgotten. What we ought to have known we knew not. We have become mad and not considered what we ought to have considered, and so our days have passed away. Our passions are strong and our discrimination weak. Our understanding cannot enter into God's designs. We say one thing and do another. Worldly love hindereth us from understanding. Saith Ram Das, I, thy slave, am sad at heart. Avert thine anger from me and have mercy on my soul. We should fix our attention on God, who can adequately reward us. 4. God is an ocean of pleasure. In His power are the miraculous tree and gem and cow. The 4 advantages, the 18 miraculous powers, and the 9 treasures are in the palm of His hand. Why repeat not God, God, God with thy tongue, and abandon all other device of words? The epic poems, the Purans, the Veds of Brahma are all composed out of 34 letters. Bias, having reflected, expressed his conviction that there was nothing equal to the name of God. Very fortunate are they who tranquilly contemplate and fix their attention upon God. They shall afterwards be freed from their troubles. Saith Rav Das, the fear of death and birth fleeth from him who hath put the light of divine knowledge into his heart. The saint's relation to God. 5. If thou art a hill, then I am thy peacock. If thou art the moon, then I am thy chakor. O God, if thou break not with me, I will not break with thee. If I break with thee, whom shall I join? If thou art a lamp, then I am thy wick. If thou art a place of pilgrimage, then I am thy pilgrim. I have joined true love with thee. Joining thee, I have broken with all others. Wherever I go, there is thy service. There is no other Lord like thee, O God. By worshipping thee, death's noose is cut away. Rav Das singeth to obtain thy service. Man is too proud of his body, though its origin and its end are contemptible. 6. The body is a wall of water, supported by a pillar of air. Blood and semen are its mortar. The poor soul dwelleth in a skeleton of bones, flesh, and veins. O mortal, what is mine and what is thine? As a bird percheth on a tree, so doth the soul on the body. Thou layest foundations and buildest thyself a house. 3½ cubits shall be thy measure at last. Thou curlest thy hair and wearest thy turban on the side of thy head, but thy body shall become a heap of dust. Even though thou possess lofty palaces and beautiful women, without the name of God, thy game is lost. My caste is low, my lineage low, and base is my birth. I have sought thy shelter, O God, saith the tanner Rav Das. The following was addressed to someone who reproached Rav Das for not following his trade. 7. I, a cobbler, know not how to mend shoes, yet people want me to mend their shoes. I have no awl to stitch with. I have no knife to patch with. People have been thoroughly ruined by mending shoes. I have attained my object without mending shoes. Rav Das repeateth God's name. I have now no concern with death. Rav Das's devotion and hope in God. Dana Sari. 1. There is none so poor as I, none so compassionate as thou. For this, what further test is now necessary? May my heart obey thy words. Fill thy servant therewith. I am a sacrifice to thee, O God. Why art thou silent? For many births have I been separated from thee, O God. This birth is on thine own account. Saith Rav Das, putting my hopes in thee I live. It is long since I have seen thee. Rav Das's love for God. 2. I remember thee, O God, in my heart. I behold thee with mine eyes. I fill mine ears with thy hymns and praises. I make my mind the honey bee. I put thy lotus feet into my heart, and with my tongue I utter thine ambrosial name. May my love for God not decrease. I have bought it dear in exchange for my soul. Without the companionship of the saints, no love is produced, and without love, no service is performed for thee. Rav Das offereth one prayer to God. Preserve mine honor, O my sovereign Lord. God's name is for Rav Das equal to all the Hindu oblations. 3. Thy name, O God, is mine arati and mine ablutions. Without the name of God, all display is vain. Thy name is my prayer mat. Thy name my saffron grater. Thy name the saffron which I sprinkle for thee. Thy name is the water. Thy name the sandal. The repetition of thy name, the grating thereof. Taking it, I offer it unto thee. Thy name is the lamp. Thy name the wick. Thy name the oil I pour therein. Thy name is the light which I have applied to it, and which hath enlightened the whole world. Thy name is the string. Thy name the necklace of flowers. All the 18 loads of vegetables are too impure to offer thee. Why should I offer thee the work of thy hands? Thy name is the chari which I wave over thee. The whole world is engrossed in the 18 Purans, the 68 places of pilgrimage, and the four sources of life. Saith Ram Das, Thy name is the Arati, the true name is the food I offer unto Thee, O God. God alone can save man from his evil passions. Yatsari, O Lord, I know nothing. I have sold my soul to Mammon. Thou art styled the great Lord of the world, and we the sensualists of the Kal age. The five evil passions which have corrupted my heart have at every moment thrown a barrier between Thee and me. Whithersoever I look, there is a stock of trouble. I am not yet satisfied, although the Veds bear witness to God. As for his sin on the body of Indar, the paramour of Ahalya, Gautam's wife, 1,000 vaginae formed. As the head of Brahma adhered to the hand of Shiv, the Lord of Yuma, for his sin, so these wicked enemies, the deadly sins, have bound and beaten me also, a sinner. I am very shameless and have not yet grown weary of their company. Saith Ram Das, whither shall I go? What shall I do? Except God's protection, whose shall I seek? The saint and the sinner under the allegories of a good and a bad wife contrasted. Suhi 1. The good wife knoweth her spouse's worth. She renounceth pride and enjoyeth conjugal happiness. She giveth her husband her body and soul, and maketh no distinction between him and herself. She seeth no one else, heareth no one else, and speaketh to no one else. How should she, into whose heart no sorrow hath entered, know of the woes of others? The bad wife who hath not served her spouse continually is unhappy, and loseth both worlds. The way by the bridge of Sarat is difficult. She shall have no companion, and must go alone. In grief and in pain, O God, I have come to Thy door. I am very thirsty, and I have received no answer from Thee. Saith Ram Das, I have come to Thy protection. Effect my salvation as Thou thinkest best. As everything here changes, man should make provision for the hereafter. 2. The days which come pass away again. We must march on. Nothing remaineth stable. Our companions are going. We too must go. The journey is long. Death standeth over us. Why sleepest thou? Awake for God's service, O silly one. Thou thoughtest life a real thing in this world, when thou oughtest to have thought of God. He who gave thee life conveyeth thee sustenance, and in every heart openeth a shop. Worship God. Lay aside egoism. In thy heart remember God's name betimes. Thy life hath come to an end, yet thou hast not prepared thy way. It is evening, and the darkness is on every side. Saith Ram Das, O fool and madman, didst thou not reflect that the world is a transitory abode? Man can only rely on God, not on property or relations. 3. Man buildeth lofty mansions with halls and kitchens, but after death he cannot remain in them for a ghari. This body is like a wainscoting of grass. When the grass is burnt, it is blended with the dust. Even thy relations, thy family, and thy companions set up a cry. Take him out quickly. The wife of thy house, who embraced thee in life, crieth out, Ghost, ghost, and runneth away from thee. Saith Ram Das, Death hath plundered the whole world, but I have escaped by repeating the name of the one God. God's grace is unparalleled. Bilawal 1. Everybody used to laugh on seeing my poverty. Such was my condition. But I hold the whole 18 supernatural powers in the palm of my hand, through Thy favour. Thou knowest I am nothing, O God, destroyer of fear. All men have sought Thy protection, O God, fulfiller of desires. They who have sought Thy protection no longer bear the load of sin. High and low have been delivered from the shameless world through Thee. Saith Ram Das, why say more regarding the ineffable? Thou, O God, art Thine own parallel. To what can I liken Thee? The glorification of the saint. 2. The family in which a saint of God is born, whether it be of high or low caste, poor or rich, shall have its unalloyed fame blazoned through the world. Whether man be a Brahmin, a Vaisya, a Sudar, a Khatri, a Doon, a Chandal, or a Melech, he becometh pure by worshipping God. He saveth himself and the families of both his parents. Bless the village, bless the place of his birth, blessed his pure family in all worlds. He hath quaffed the supreme essence. Abandoning all others, he hath become intoxicated with it, and renounced sin. Among pandits, heroes, and emperors there is none equal to the saint. As the leaves of the water lily in the water, saith Ram Das, is the saint's existence in the world. He remaineth uncontaminated by it. God as the dispenser of salvation. Gaund 1. Repeat the name of God, the dispenser of salvation, ye people. Without the dispenser of salvation the body groweth weary in transmigration. The dispenser of salvation is the giver of deliverance. The dispenser of salvation is our father and mother. Living, repeat his name. Dying, repeat his name. His worshipper is ever happy. The dispenser of salvation is my life. If it had been so recorded on thy forehead, thou shalt repeat his name. Only he who hath ceased to love the world can serve God. That dispenser of salvation, I, poor though I be, have obtained as my wealth. If the one dispenser of salvation do me a favour, what can the world do to me? Having effaced my caste, I have become a courtier of God. Thou, O God, art able to save the world. Divine knowledge hath sprung up, and I have become enlightened. God hath graciously accepted this worm as his slave. Saith Ram Das, my thirst hath now ceased. I repeat the name of God and perform his service. The fate of the slanderer, 2. If man bathe at the 68 places of pilgrimage, if he worship the 12 lingam stones, if he dedicate a well or a tank, but practice slander, all shall be in vain. How shall the slanderer of a saint be saved? Know that he shall assuredly fall into hell. If man celebrate eclipses at Kurkhetar, offer his wife with her decorations to the Brahmins, and hear with his ears all the Simritis, yet if he practice slander, all shall be in vain. If he prepare many feasts to Brahmins, make them gifts of land, and build them splendid public mansions, if neglecting his own business he perform that of others, and yet practice slander, he shall wander in many births. O ye people, why do ye slander? The slanderer's character is well known. Holy men have considered and decided regarding the slanderer. Saith Ram Das, he is a sinner and shall go to hell. It is the Guru who communicates the name by which God's designs are manifested. Ramkali. Men read, study, and hear all God's names, yet God's designs are not known. How shall iron become pure gold unless it be touched by the philosopher's stone? O God, the knots of doubt unravel not. Lust, wrath, worldly love, pride, and jealousy, these 5 combined plunder the world. We are great poets of high family, we are pandits, we are yogis, sannyasis, gyanis, virtuous heroes, we are generous, these ideas shall never perish. Saith Ram Das, all these men do not understand God, they go astray like madmen. God's name is my support, my life, my soul, and my wealth. Ram Das, in obtaining salvation, acknowledges God's favour. Maru, who but thee, my jewel, could do such a thing? Cherisher of the poor, Lord of the earth, thou hast put over my head the umbrella of spiritual sovereignty. Thou relentest towards him whose touch defileth the world. The lowly dost thou exalt, my God, and none dost thou fear. Namdev, Kabir, Trilochan, Sadhana, and Sain were saved. Saith Ram Das, hear, O saints, through God everything is done. The man of low birth and caste may be saved by devotion. Kadar. Though one perform the 6 good acts and belong to a high family, yet if he heartily worship not God and love not the mention of his lotus feet, he is equal to a pariah. O thoughtless man, think upon God in thy heart. Why not look at Balmik? From a low caste, what a high position he attained by his special devotion to God. Though an eater of dogs, the lowest of all, he was beloved by Krishan. How can poor mortals praise God? His praise extendeth to the 3 worlds. Ajamal, the courtesan, Ladiyah, the huntsman, and the elephant went to God. Such degraded beings were saved. Why shouldst not thou too be saved, O Ram Das? The advantages of repeating God's name. Bhairo, without beholding God there is no hope. Everything that we see perisheth. He who repeateth God's name with due praise is the only yogi free from desires. If any one employ himself in repeating God's name, and God, the philosopher's stone, touch him, his duality shall no longer remain. He who destroyeth the duality of his mind is a Muni. He shall be absorbed in God who filleth the 3 worlds. Everybody acteth according to his natural inclinations. It is only the Creator who abideth without fear. Vegetables blossom to produce fruit. When the fruit appeareth, the blossoms decay. For the sake of divine knowledge, men practice religious ceremonies. When divine knowledge is obtained, religious ceremonies are not performed. To make butter, knowing people churn coagulated milk. So those who strive for divine knowledge obtain deliverance while alive, and are ever at rest. Saith Ram Das, having embraced supreme contempt for the world, why not heartily repeat God's name, O luckless man? Ram Das endeavours to humiliate his body. Basant, thou knowest nothing, O my body. On seeing thy fine clothes thou puffest thyself up. No place can hold the proud, yet over thy head the crow caweth. Why art thou proud, O demented body? Thou art much more short-lived than a toadstool in the month of Bhadan. The deer knoweth not the secret of his musk. He hath it in his body, yet he searcheth for it abroad. He who understandeth his own fleeting body shall never be disgraced by the myrmidons of death. Man is proud of his son and wife. It is from him God will take an account. Thou shalt suffer for what thou thyself hast done, O soul. Whom shalt thou afterwards address as dear one, dear one? If thou seek the protection of holy men, thy sins, even though millions upon millions, shall all be erased. Saith Ram Das, he who repeateth God's name hath no concern with caste or birth or transmigration. The saint, no matter how low his caste, is superior even to the demigods. Malar 2. Neither the Lord of Lakshmi, nor the Lord of Kailas, nor any one else is equal to those who repeat God's name. He is one alone, though diffused in many ways. Recall him to your thoughts. He filleth creation. He in whose house devotion to God and nothing else was seen was by caste an untouchable calico printer. The greatness of God's name was seen in Vyas. It was observed in the sons of Brahma. It is famous through the 7 islands of the earth. He whose family used to sacrifice cows at the Id and Bakar Id, and who worshipped sheikhs and martyrs and pirs. Kabir, the son of a father who used to do such things, so succeeded that he became celebrated in the 3 worlds. All the chamars of my family even still go round Banaras removing dead cattle. Yet strict Brahmins prostrate themselves before their offspring. Ram Das, the slave of God's slaves. The following hymn was composed in reply to a Brahmin who inquired how Ram Das could obtain salvation. 3. By what devotion shall I meet my beloved, the Lord of souls? The supreme state is obtained by association with saints. Soiled is my vesture. How long shall I wash it? How long shall I remain in this sleep which hath come upon me? The things to which I was attached have all perished. The shop of spurious traffic hath closed. Saith Ram Das, when my account is taken, I shall see whatever I have done recorded to my credit. End of section 20. Section 21 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6 by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 21. Mira Bhai. A hymn of Mira Bhai is preserved in the Granth Sahib of Bhai Bano, which can be seen at Mangat in the Gujarat district of the Panjab, but it is not included in Guru Arjan's collection. Mira Bhai was daughter of Ratan Singh Rathaur of Maratha, a town between Bikaner and Jodhpur in Rajputana. She was born about AD 1504. She appears to have inherited her religious proclivities from her mother. When Mira Bhai was yet a child, the bridal procession of a youth of position passed by the palace. All the ladies of the court, except Mira Bhai's mother, went to the upper apartments to view the procession. She took the opportunity of their absence to worship an image of Krishan called Girdhar Lal, which was set up in her private apartment. Mira Bhai laid aside her playthings to follow her mother, and said to her, "Who is my bridegroom?" Her mother smiled, took her in her arms, and pointing to Girdhar Lal said, "There is your bridegroom." Upon this Mira Bhai instantly accepted him, and veiled her face according to the Oriental practice, which requires a wife to veil her face even from her mother in the presence of her husband. She became so enamoured of Girdhar Lal that she could not pass an instant without seeing him. Her love for him is compared to that of the milkmaids of Bindraban for Krishan. She in time indulged her passion without fear or shame, and without any regard for the traditions of her family concerning the retirement of women from the public gaze. While her affections were thus engaged, she was betrothed to Kanwar Bhojraj, son of Rana Sanga of Mewar. The subsequent marriage in A.D. 1560, as might well have been expected, proved unhappy. Bhojraj came to Maratha in great state with a large retinue, but when the marriage ceremony was being performed, and the time came for the bride to circumambulate the pavilion set up for the ceremony, Mira Bhai walked around the idol of Girdhar Lai and took no notice of the bridegroom. When the time for her departure with her husband arrived, her parents wished to send her off with suitable marriage presents, but she was miserable at leaving Girdhar Lai. She grew sad and restless, and wept to such an extent that she became insensible. When she regained consciousness, her parents affectionately told her that, if it made her happy, she might take Girdhar Lai with her without any further ceremony. She replied that if they valued her present and future happiness, they would give her the image, and she would worship it with heart and soul. Her parents had already perceived that she was a saint and lover of God, and so at the moment of separation from their beloved daughter, they presented her with the image as part of her dowry. Mira Bhai, who was overjoyed at obtaining possession of the object of her devotion, set it up in her palanquin, and during the journey feasted her eyes on its beauty. On arriving at her new home, her mother-in-law, the Rani, had hardly paid her the rites of hospitality when she asked her to worship Durga, a goddess of a totally different temper from the playful Krishan. Mira Bhai replied that she had devoted her body to Girdhar Lai, and she would bow her head to none but him. Her mother-in-law replied that a good wife was improved by worshipping Durga. But Mira Bhai closed the discussion by saying it was of no use to press her further, and she would abide by her first determination. On this the Rani became very angry and went to complain of Mira Bhai to the Rana. "This daughter-in-law of ours is worthless, for on the very day of her arrival she refuseth to obey me and putteth me to shame. It is clear what our future relations are to be." The Rana became excessively incensed and went to his daughter-in-law with the intention of punishing her. The Rani, however, had sufficient sense to restrain him, and he decided that the interests of domestic peace would be consulted by putting Mira Bhai into a separate apartment. Though it is admitted by Nabhaji that Rukmini, who became Krishan's consort, and the milkmaids who became Krishan's playfellows, did not meet him until they had sacrificed to Durga, yet as Mira Bhai had already obtained Krishan, it was unnecessary for her to worship Durga, and no exception could be taken to her conduct on the precedent of Rukmini and the milkmaids. Mira Bhai, on finding herself in a private apartment, became excessively happy and gave full scope to her religious enthusiasm. She set up her image, decked and adorned it, and devoted herself night and day to the company of holy men. Her sister-in-law, Uday Bhai, was sent to remonstrate with her, and said, "Thou art the scion of a noble house. Be wise and desist from the company of faqirs, which casteth a slur on both our families." Mira Bhai replied, "The slur of hundreds of thousands of births departeth on association with saints. The slur is on her who loveth not their company. My life dependeth on the company of saints. To any one who is displeased with it, thy remonstrance would be proper." It was on this occasion that Mira Bhai composed the following hymns: "O my friend, my mind is attached to Krishan. I shall not be restrained from loving him. If any one give me a reproach, I will give 100,000 in return. My mother-in-law is severe, my sister-in-law obstinate. How can I endure this misery?" Mira, for the sake of the Lord Girdhar, would endure the obloquy of the world. "I have the god Girdhar and no other. He is my spouse, on whose head is a crown of peacock feathers, who carrieth a shell, discus, mace, and lotus, and who weareth a necklace. I have forfeited the respect of the world by ever sitting near holy men. The matter is now public, everybody knoweth it. Having felt supreme devotion, I die as I behold the world. I have no mother, father, son, or relation with me. I laugh when I behold my beloved. People think I weep. I have planted the vine of love and irrigated it again and again with the water of tears. I have cast away fear of the world. What can any one do to me? Mira's love for her God is fixed, come what may. The Rana, on being informed of Mira Bhai's determination, became beside himself with rage, and sent her a cup of poison under the name of Charn Amrit, that is, water in which an image had been bathed. When she tasted the liquor, she knew it was poison, and thus apostrophized: "The body is perishable, so why weep if it perish in the service of Krishan? There needs be no regret at the disappearance of a mirage, or at the failure of the son of a barren woman to wed. It is not right to say that the moon perisheth on the 30th day of the lunar month. Lamentations are as vain as the grief of a bee at the fading of an imaginary flower. As the fruit of a tree falleth sooner or later, so have I fallen at Krishan's feet. As a pearl born in the ocean is turned into an ornament, so shall I glitter in Krishan's diadem. The world itself is an illusion." Mira Bai's only grief at leaving her body was that the worship of Krishan might decline. Having informed the god of her father-in-law's intention, she thus addressed the object of her worship: "People will say that the king poisoned his daughter-in-law because she worshipped thee. I fear, therefore, that thy worship will be neglected, and the apprehension causeth me poignant misery. Who will now put on thy decorations? Who will put the saffron mark on thy forehead, attach dazzling rings to thine ears, twine a garland of pearls round thy neck, girdle thee with a jewelled zone, tie on thy golden armlets and anklets, light incense to gratify thy nostrils, make thee offerings of sweet basil, present thee with sacred food to satisfy thy hunger, and prostrate herself in adoration before thee? My father-in-law hath already abandoned thy worship in his displeasure with me. Others too will reproach me with my death and cease to do thee homage. But after all, why should I be anxious? Thou thyself knowest the past, the present, and the future. Thou hast ever preserved thy saints from poison, fire, and sword, so why should I be anxious now?" On this Mira Bai put the cup of poison on her head in token of submission, and then cheerfully drank it. On that occasion she composed the following verses: Radha and Krishan dwell in my heart. Some say that Mira is insane, others that she hath disgraced her family. Opening her veil and baring her breast, she danceth with delight before her God. In the bowers of Vrindaban, Krishan with the tilak on his forehead gladdeneth my heart. The Rana sent a cup of poison, and Mira drank it with delight. Mira's lord is the all-wise Girdhar. She is bound to his service. The Rana waited to hear of Mira's death, but her life was miraculously preserved, and her cheeks gradually assumed a higher bloom. She devoted herself to the further decoration and ornamentation of the image, and decked it out in fashions ever new. She sang the praises of her God, and filled her heart with delight and immortal love. She also composed the following on this occasion: I knew the Rana had given me poison. God, who caused my boat to float across, separated the milk and water for me. Until gold is annealed, it is not perfectly pure. O king, keep thine own family in seclusion. I am the wife of another. I sacrifice my mind and body to the saint. Even though he be a pariah, I have sold myself to God. Mira, for the sake of worshipping the Lord Girdhar, is entangled in the feet of holy men. When the Rana found that the poison had produced no effect, he appointed tipstaffs to watch Mira Bai and report when she again conferred with faqirs, so that she might be put to death when detected in the act. She was in the habit of laughing and holding playful converse with the idol. One day a tipstaff went and said to the king, "At this very moment Mira Bhai is holding conversation and laughing with some one." The king took up his sword and called out to her to open the folding doors. He asked her where the person was with whom she had been holding such pleasant discourse. She replied, "There he is before thee, mine idol, mine adored. Open thine eyes and look. He is neither afraid nor ashamed of thee." Nabhaji states that Mira Bhai and the idol had been playing at Indian draughts, and at the time of the Rana's entrance the idol actually extended its arm to move a piece. The Rana, on witnessing the miracle, became ashamed. There was, however, no real impression made on his obdurate heart. Once when Mira Bai was ill, she composed the following: "Krishan with the large eyes looked at me and smiled, as I was going to draw water from the Jamna, and the vessel glittered on my head. Since then the delightful image of the dark and beautiful one hath dwelt in my heart. You may write and bring me incantations, you may write and bring me spells, grind medicine and give it me, that will not cure me. If any one bring me Krishan as my physician, I will gladly arise. His eyebrows are bows, his eyes the arrows which he fitted thereto, and dischargeth to pierce me. Mira's lord is the wise Girdhar. How can I abide at home?" A dissolute and abandoned person tried to tempt Mira Bai's virtue. He told her that he was armed with Girdhar Lal's permission to give her such pleasure as she could only obtain from man's embraces. She replied that she humbly submitted to Girdhar Lal's order, but that they must first dine. She meantime had a couch placed and dressed in the enclosure where saints were assembled. She there addressed her would-be paramour: "Thou needest not be ashamed or afraid of any one, as the order of Girdhar Lal is on every account proper." The man replied, "Does any one do such things before others?" She said she knew of no secret place, for Krishan was everywhere present. "He seeth the good and bad acts of all, and rewardeth men according to their deserts." On hearing this the ruffian turned pale, and vice gave place to virtue in his heart. He fell at her feet, and with clasped hands asked mercy and divine intercession. Mira Bai felt compassion and brought him, in the words of the chronicler, face to face with God. Tulsi Das, according to all received accounts, lived nearly a century after Mira Bai, but some poets have made them contemporaries. The following letter to Tulsi Das is attributed by Raja Raghuraj Singh to Mira Bai: "To the holy Lord Tulsi Das, the virtuous, the remover of sin, greeting. I ever bow to thee. Dispel all my sorrow. All my husband's relations give me continual annoyance. They cause me to endure great suffering when I associate with saints and perform my worship. Since childhood Mira hath contracted love for Girdhar Lal. She cannot now free herself from it in any way. It completely overpowereth her. Thou art to me a father and mother. Thou conferrest happiness on God's saints. Write and inform me what it is proper for me to do." Tulsi Das's reply: "They who love not Ram and Sita should be abandoned as if they were millions of enemies, however much we love them. Prahlad abandoned his father, Bibhishan his brother Bhawan, and Balrat his mother, Bali his guru, the women of Brij their husbands, and their lives were all happier for having done so. The opinion of all holy saints is that relations with and love of God are alone true. Of what avail is the eye salve which causeth the eyes to burst? What more can I say? Saith Tulsi Das, that spouse is worshipful, that son is dearer than life. Who is attached to Ram? He is my real friend in this world." As Mira Bai has been made a contemporary of Tulsi Das, so also she has been made a contemporary of the Emperor Akbar. It is said that, having heard of the virtues and beauty of Mira Bai, he went with his minstrel Tansen, both disguised as hermits, to visit her. The following lines in attestation of this circumstance are attributed to Mira Bai. O mother, I recognize Krishan as my spouse. Akbar came to test me and brought Tansen with him. He heard singing, music, and pious discourse. He bowed to the ground again and again. Mira's lord, the all-wise Girdhar, made me his protege. It is said that on observing her devotion, Akbar was very pleased with the good fortune which enabled him to behold her. He made her a present of a jewelled necklace, which she accepted with some misgivings, as it appeared too valuable an article for an ascetic to possess. The Emperor was equal to the occasion, and said that he had found it while performing his devotional ablutions in the river Jamna, and thought it would be a suitable present to make her god. Tansen, it is said, composed an ode in her honour, and he and his royal master then returned to their capital. The necklace was too valuable not to provoke remarks unfavourable to its recipient. The Rana submitted it to assayers who valued it at a fabulous sum of money. On inquiry, it was found to be the same that a jeweller had sold not long previously for a large price to the Emperor. Further inquiry led to the identity of the two strolling hermits with Akbar and his favourite minstrel. Mira Bhai's fate was now sealed. Her husband suspected that she had been polluted by the Emperor. For this there was but one penalty in that age: she must die. Mira Bhai's father-in-law sent her a cobra in a box, so that when she opened it the reptile might sting her to death. She was told it was a salagram. Before opening the box she addressed it as follows: O salagram in the box, why speakest thou not? I speak to thee, but thou repliest not. Why art thou silent? This ocean of the world is very immense. Take mine arm and extricate me. Mira's lord, wise Girdhar, thou alone art my helper. On opening the box, Mira composed the following: What shall the Rana do to me? Mira hath cast off the restraints of her line. The Rana once sent a cup of poison to kill Mira. Mira drank it with delight, loving it as if it were water blessed by her lord. The Rana hath now sent a box containing a cobra, but when I opened it and looked, the cobra became a salagram. There was a sound of rejoicing in the company of the saints. Krishan had mercy on me. I decorated myself, attached bells to my feet, and keeping time with both my hands, danced before the idol, and sang the praises of Krishan. The holy are mine, and I am theirs. The holy are my life. Mira is absorbed in the holy, as butter is in milk before churning. Rana Sanga, Mira's father-in-law, was still obdurate and determined that she should die by the sword, but no one could be found to act as executioner. She was then ordered to kill herself in whatever way she thought fit. By this time she was a widow, her husband having predeceased his father, and her person was at her own disposal. Promising that she would obey the Rana's command, she retired to her solitary apartment during the night, put on the dress of a mendicant, and left the palace. She plunged in the nearest river to die in obedience to the order she had received. It was said that she was miraculously preserved by an angel, who brought her to shore and addressed her: O queen, thou hast obeyed thy father-in-law, and art worthy of all praise for thy devotion. But thou hast a higher duty still to perform. It is thine to set a high example to the world, and show unto men how to fulfill the designs of the Creator and become absorbed in Him. When she recovered, she found herself alone on the river's bank, with the current flowing at her feet. She stood up in amazement, not knowing for the moment what to do. She met some cowherds, of whom she inquired the way to Bindraban. They presented her with milk, and directed her whither to proceed. She walked on, singing her hymns, the object of blessings and attentions in the villages through which she passed. On her arrival in Bindraban, she desired to see Jiv Gosain. To her disappointment, he sent her word that he would allow no woman into his presence. She replied, I thought everybody in Bindraban a woman, and only Girdhar Lal a man. I learned today that there are other partners than Krishan in Bindraban. By this she scoffingly meant that the Gosain placed himself on an equality with Krishan as god of Bindraban. The Gosain, on hearing her rebuke, went barefooted to do her homage, and beholding her became filled with the love of God. Mira Bhai with loving devotion traversed every grove and pathway of Vrindaban, and having fixed the sweet image of Krishan in her heart, returned to her late husband's home. On finding her father-in-law still obdurate, she went on a pilgrimage to Dwaraka, where Krishan reigned after leaving Mathura. There again she became entranced with the pleasure of adorning and enhancing the beauty of her favourite god. During her absence from Chitaur, the capital of Mewar, the visits of holy men to that capital ceased. Dissensions arose in the state. It was only then that the Rana realized what a holy person he had lost. He sent several Brahmans and instructed them to use every entreaty to Mira Bhai to induce her to return, and finally to tell her that it was impossible for him to live unless she complied with his prayer. The Brahmans executed his orders, but Mira Bhai refused to put herself again in the Rana's power. Upon this the Brahmans sat at her door and declared their intention of neither eating nor drinking till she had returned with them. She replied that she lived in Dwaraka only by the favour of Krishan. She would go and take leave of him and return to the Brahmans. She went to do homage to Ranchhor, the visible representation of that god, became absorbed in his love, and what she had she gave, a humble offering of verses at his shrine. O God, remove thy servant's sufferings. Thou didst supply Draupadi with endless robes and save her modesty. For the sake of thy saint Prahlad, thou didst assume the body of a man lion. Thou didst kill Hiranyakashipu, who had not the courage to oppose thee. Thou didst kill the crocodile and extricate the drowning elephant from the water. O beloved Girdhar, Mira is thy slave. Her enemies everywhere annoy her. Take me, my friend, take me to thy care, as thou knowest best. I have none but thee. Do thou show mercy unto me. I have no appetite by day and no sleep by night. My body pineth away. Lord of Mira, all-wise Girdhar, come to me now. I cannot live in thine absence. It is said that Ranchhor, on beholding her supreme love, could resist no longer. He incorporated her in himself, and she became lost to human gaze. The Brahmans searched for her in vain. The only trace of her they could obtain was her sarhi, which was found enveloping the body of the idol. The Brahmans' faith in Krishan was confirmed, but their mission otherwise was unsuccessful, and they returned sore disappointed to the Rana. The latter soon experienced the further mortification of beholding his state conquered and plundered, it is said, by the victorious army of Akbar as a retribution for the ill treatment of Mira Bhai. The following is one of the hymns whose passionate devotion is said to have produced the result of Mira Bhai's union with Ranchhor. O Lord Ranchhor, grant me to abide in Dwaraka, to abide in Dwaraka. With thy shell, discus, mace, and lotus dispel the fear of death. All places of pilgrimage ever abide in the Gomti for me. The clash of thy shell and cymbals is to me ever the essence of pleasure. I have abandoned my country, my queenly robes, my husband's palace, my property, and my kingdom. Mira, thy slave, cometh to thee for refuge. Her honour is now totally in thy keeping. It is said that in commemoration of the miraculous disappearance of Mira Bhai, her image is still worshipped at Udaipur in conjunction with that of Ranchhor, the beloved Girdhar of her childhood. The following is Mira Bhai's hymn in Bhai Bano's Granth Sahib. Maru, God hath entwined my soul, O mother, with His attributes, and I have sung of them. The sharp arrow of His love hath pierced my body through and through, O mother. When it struck me, I knew not. Now it cannot be endured, O mother. Though I use charms, incantations, and drugs, the pain will not depart. Is there any one who will treat me? Intense is the agony, O mother. Thou, O God, art near. Thou art not distant. Come quickly to meet me. Saith Mira, the Lord, the mountain wielder, who is compassionate, hath quenched the fire of my body, O mother. The lotus-eyed hath entwined my soul with the twine of His attributes. End of section 21. Section 22 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6 by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 22. Shaikh Farid. There are hymns and sloks bearing the name of Farid found in the Granth Sahib. The Persian historian Farishta states that when Taimur Lang approached Ajadhan Pakpatan in the Punjab in the year AD 1318, Sad-ul-Din, a grandson of Shaikh Farid, who was then on his spiritual throne, fled with several of the leading inhabitants of the city to Bhatner in the state of Bikaner, where they subsequently made peace with the invaders. Guru Nanak was born in AD 1469, so he could not have met the original Farid. It is stated, too, in the oldest account of the Guru's life that it was with Sheikh Brahm Ibrahim, Farid's successor, known as Farid II, he had two interviews. It is certain that it was Sheikh Brahm who composed the sloks and hymns bearing the name of Farid in the Granth Sahib, though he used the name of the founder of his spiritual line as his poetical nom de plume. The following is the genealogy of Sheikh Brahm. He was the son of Khwaja Sheikh Muhammad, who was son of Dewan Pir Atala, who was son of Dewan Sheikh Ahmad Shah, who was son of Dewan Pir Baha-ul-Din, styled Haran, who was son of Khwaja Munawar Shah, who was son of Khwaja Dewan Pir Fazal, who was son of Khwaja Dewan Muiz-ul-Din, who was son of Khwaja Dewan Pir Ala-ul-Din, called Maji Daria, a wave of piety, who was son of Dewan Badar-ul-Din Suleiman, who was son of Hazrat Baba Farid-ul-Din Masud Shakar Ganj, the original Farid of Pakpatan. Sheikh Brahm holds a distinguished place in the list of great saints and bears several titles or appellations. He is called Farid Sani, or Farid II, Salas Farid, or the arbitrator Farid, Sheikh Brahm Kalan, Sheikh Brahm the Elder, Bal Raja, Sheikh Brahm Sahib, and Shah Brahm. He is said to have performed many miracles. The following is given as an example. A thief once entered his house with criminal intent, but by God's will was struck blind and could not find his way out. When Sheikh Brahm rose at night to pray, he told his servant to fetch water for his ablutions. The servant saw the blind thief standing helpless on the floor and informed his master. The thief prayed for forgiveness and promised that if he recovered his sight, he would renounce his evil ways. Upon this, Sheikh Brahm prayed for him. He recovered his sight and became a devout Musalman. Another of Sheikh Brahm's miracles is this. In a season of drought, he took off his turban and began to whirl it about, upon which rain fell abundantly. Two sons of Sheikh Brahm are mentioned. One, Sheikh Taj-ul-Din Mahmud, a great saint, and another, Sheikh Munawar Shah Shahid. Sheikh Brahm had several disciples, such as Sheikh Salim Kishti, Fatehpuri, Sheikh Almadi of Chunian, Baba Ahmad Lanak of Dapalpur, Maulvi Jalal-ul-Din of Sheikh Habad, Shah Abdul Fatah of Ghazapur, Haji Niamat Ullah of Sheikh Hupur, etc. Sheikh Brahm died on the 21st of Raja, AH 960, AD 1552, after a spiritual reign of 42 years. The Kula Sat-ul Tawarik states that he was buried at Sarhind. Whatever other details are known of him have been given in the life of Guru Nanak, who went on 2 occasions to meet and converse with him. There is a great deal known or written regarding the original Shaikh Farid, and it appears that this sketch would be incomplete without some account of him. 2 genealogies of Shaikh Farid, subsequently called Farid Shakar Ganj, are given in the Jawahar-e Faridi, one spiritual, the other temporal. He received his spiritual position from his priest Khwaja Qutb-ul-Din Bakhtiar Ushi of Dihli, whose spiritual predecessors ascend in a direct line to the Prophet of Makkah. Farid's temporal or family genealogy is traced back through princes and kings to Hazrat Amir-ul-Mu'minin Umar bin ul-Kitab Qureshi Makki Faruqi, the second Khalifa of the Mohammedans. When Farrukh Shah, from whom Farid was descended, was king of Kabul, the kings of Ghazni and other states were subject to him. When Kabul was subsequently captured by the king of Ghazni, Farrukh Shah's son went to him in quest of a livelihood. The king of Ghazni treated him with respect, and not only restored him his kingdom of Kabul, but gave him his daughter in marriage. It would appear that the kings of Ghazni and Kabul at the time were relations, for Shaikh Farid's father, Shaikh Jamal-ul-Din, was nephew of the king of Ghazni. Shaikh Farid's great-grandfather was killed in the struggles of that period. Farid's grandfather, Shaikh Shaib, with his relations, including 3 sons, the eldest of whom was Jamal-ul-Din Suleiman, abandoned their country and took refuge in the Panjab in AH 519, AD 1125. The Qazi of Kazur, who had been educated in Kabul and who was acquainted with the high position Shaikh Shaib had held there, treated him and his relatives with great respect and hospitality. After some time, Shaikh Shaib proceeded to Multan, where he deemed he should be less exposed to worldly influences or the temptings of ambition. When he heard of the attentions in store for him in that city, he decided that he could not there carry out his intention to lead a life of obscurity and self-effacement. He accordingly took up his abode in Kothawal, now known as Chawali Mushaik, not far from Dipalpur. Shaikh Shaib established in Kothawal a private college for religious instruction, and in spite of himself attracted much attention. His eldest son, Jamal-ul-Din, married Bibi Miriam, daughter of Sayyid Muhammad Abdullah Shah, a descendant of Ali, and adopted daughter of Maulvi Waji-ul-Din, a descendant of Abbas, uncle of the Prophet of Makkah. Waji-ul-Din had fled from Kabul during political difficulties and taken up his abode in Koror in the Multan district. Miriam is described as a very pious lady and worker of some great miracles. She had 3 sons, Khwaja Aziz-ul-Din, Farid-ul-Din Masad, Khawaja Najib-ul-Din, and 1 daughter, Bibi Khatun Jamila, the mother of Sayyid Ala-ul-Din Ali Ahmad Sabir. Nizam-ul-Din Aliya, a disciple of Farid, relates a legend of a robber who went to Farid's mother's house to steal. On beginning his operations, he lost his sight. He then cried out that there must be some saint or miracle worker present. He vowed that if his lost sight were restored, he would renounce thieving and become a good Mohammedan. On hearing this vow, Miriam prayed for him, and his sight was restored. He went home and returned to her the following morning with an offering of milk. Accompanied by his wife and children, he expressed a desire that they should all become Mohammedans. Miriam caused his wishes in this respect to be gratified, with the result that they all became holy. In reply to her, he said his name was Chawa. His shrine, among others, in that locality, subsequently became a place of devout pilgrimage. When Farid was conceived, his mother used to spend her days and nights in prayer. He was born at Kothawal on the 1st day of the month of Ramzan, AH 569, AD 1173. The night of his birth was dark and cloudy, and the moon, whose appearance indicates the beginning of Ramzan, the Mohammedan Lent, could not be seen, so men did not know when to begin their fast. A holy man arrived and said that a wonderful son had been born to Jamal ul Din Suleiman. If the infant suckled, the time for fasting had not yet begun, but if, on the contrary, he refused the breast, then all good Mohammedans must fast. Farid did not suckle, and so it was apparent the fast had begun. During the whole of the month of Ramzan, it is said, the infant only took milk by night, in the Mohammedan fashion, and fasted by day. When Farid was a few years old, his mother taught him his prayers. The boy asked what was gained by prayer. His mother replied, "Sugar." She used accordingly to hide some sugar under his prayer carpet, and when he had finished his prayers, draw it forth and give it to him as a reward for his devotion. On one occasion, when his mother was absent, he prayed a great deal, and it is said a great supply of sugar, a miraculous gift of God, was found under his carpet. Some he ate himself, and the rest he gave to his playfellows. He related the circumstance to his mother on her return. It was then his mother gave him the surname Shakar Ganj, meaning a treasury of sugar. The following is another version of the reason why the name Shakar Ganj was bestowed on Farid. It is related that when the Prophet Muhammad ascended into heaven, God gave him a plate of sugar, which he said was from the treasury of a saint who should be born in his sect. The Prophet was to eat some of it himself and give the remainder to his disciples. When the Prophet returned to earth, his friends asked him whence he had obtained the sugar. He replied that a holy man should be born in his sect, who would become a mediator for sinners. When the Prophet was asked the holy man's name, he said, "He shall receive from God the name Farid, as being Fardi Alam, unique in the world, and he shall be called by me Shakar Ganj." A third reason for the name will subsequently be given. His mother sent Farid to school at the age of 4 or 5 years. In a short time he committed the whole the Quran to memory. He was then sent to Multan, where he became proficient in secular learning. His mother, it is said, was then counseled by an angel to send him on a pilgrimage to Makkah. Farid himself had previously conceived the same desire, though he was then hardly more than a child. He was at the time reading the Abul Nafa with Sayyid Nazir Ahmad. When the latter heard of Farid's intended departure, he began to weep at the loss of his beloved pupil. His parents then resolved to take the boy's preceptor also. They set out from Kothawal on the 13th day of Jamadi ul Sani, AH 585, and arrived in the harbour of Jadda on the 12th of Zi Qada of the same year, that is, after a journey of 5 months. Thence they proceeded to Makkah. Farid's party stayed in the house of Abdul Rahim Ansari, whose wife was very attentive to them. They heard that Abdul Qadir Jilani, styled Hazrat Gaus Pak Qutb-i-Alam, had come from Baghdad to perform the great Mohammedan pilgrimage and taken up his position in the cave of Hira on Mount Abu Qabis near Makkah. Hazrat Gaus's praises were in everybody's mouth, and Farid did not conceal his admiration of the distinguished saint. An unkempt fakir, on hearing Farid's language, foretold the boy's subsequent greatness. The fakir whispered something into his ear, and he at once became insensible. He was taken up and carried to Abdul Rahim's house. Farid afterwards averred that while he was in this state of apparent insensibility, the Prophet appeared to him and foretold his future distinction and the fame of his shrine. Muhammad promised he would stand on Farid's tomb every 5th day of the Muharram for 9 hours through all time. Farid's mother suggested to him to commit to writing all the details of his interview with the Prophet, but the memorandum made in obedience to his mother's suggestion has not been found. When the pilgrimage to Makkah was over, Hazrat Gaus invited Farid and his party to visit him in his cave. Hazrat Gaus there produced an iron box containing relics of the Prophet. They consisted of 2 banners which used to precede him in war, 2 covers for them, a cup made of olive wood, a pair of buskins, a saffron-colored turban, and some alpaca cloth for a neckcloth. When these things, after examination, were restored to the iron box, it was placed on Farid's head and bestowed on him. After this, Farid's party went to visit Medina, and after a brief sojourn there, returned to India. On their way from the sea, they visited Ajmer, where Farid received instruction from Khawaja Garib Nawaz. Farid was in due time sent to Kabul to study theology. Having completed his course there, he returned to Multan. At Minhaj ul Din's mosque, he met the saint Qutb ul Din and became his disciple. Farid's cousin Baha ul Din Zakaria, Sayyid Jalal ul Din Bukhari, and Lal Shahbaz Qalandar asked Farid to join them on a religious peregrination. They were to proceed, as fancy dictated, in quest of some man of eminent sanctity. Farid said that he only believed in his own priest, Qutb ul Din. Baha ul Din, however, pressed him to join the party, and Farid finally consented. On the journey they arrived at a place where two ways met. On one way, which was short, there were thieves, while on the other, which was long, they might travel in safety. Baha ul Din advised them to go by the safe road, even though it cost more trouble, lest they might be deprived of the money they had with them for their travelling expenses. Farid gave it as his opinion that they should divest themselves of everything that was likely to be stolen, and then proceed by the short road. This advice was adopted. On their way they arrived at the river Indus, where they found fishermen casting nets. Farid and his party were hungry and agreed to cast nets into the river, each in his turn and in his own name, in the hope of catching some fish for their dinner. The nets were cast and found empty until it came to Farid's turn. His net became so full of fish, and therefore so heavy, that the fishermen could not draw it out of the water. Farid, repeating Bismillah, easily drew it forth. The party then proceeded to cross the river. On the opposite shore there lived a saint called Shaikh Suf, under whose spiritual guidance Farid and his party wished to place themselves. Shaikh Suf told Farid and his friends that he had no power to make them his disciples, and referred them to Shaikh Shahab ul Din Saharwardi, the sinecure of the age, who lived in Bukhara. Farid and his three friends then set out for Bukhara. Shahab ul Din declared that Farid was a man of wonderful courage and destined to obtain a high spiritual position. At the same time, he ought to return to his own priest, Qutb ul Din. Before the return of the party, Baha ul Din became a disciple of Shahab ul Din. As Farid, Baha ul Din, Sayyid Jalal ul Din Bukhari, and Lal Shahbaz Qalandar were returning from Bukhara, they stayed near a village in Sindh. A charitable person gave them a little corn for food, which they much required after a long fast. Farid bade his companions go and pray in the forest, while he took the corn to the village to be ground. He went to a woman's house and asked her to grind the corn and take some of the flour for her labor. She, seeing that he was very handsome, invited him into her house and told him that he might grind the corn himself. When he entered, she proposed that he should make love to her. Preparatory to the hoped-for act, she put her child of 3 months old into a cradle. Farid repulsed her, and when she further pressed her proposal, took to flight. She then cried out, called all her neighbors to witness an indecent assault, and charged the runaway with having dishonored her. The villagers collected, pursued, and arrested Farid, and took him before the magistrate. He was called upon for his defense, and asked to produce witnesses of his innocence, if he had any. Otherwise he should suffer the punishment provided for such a heinous crime. Farid said his witness was the woman's child, who would support his statements. The child was brought to court in his cradle. Farid adjured the child by his Creator to speak the truth and tell what had occurred. He, to the astonishment of all, not only spoke intelligently, but gave evidence calculated to completely establish Farid's innocence. Upon this the magistrate rebuked and imprisoned the woman. When Farid reached Khwaja Qutb ul Din, the latter was at the height of his fame. The author of the Jawahir-e Faridi states that he enjoined the observance of the following 4 rules on all who aspired to perfection: sleep little, eat little, speak little, associate little with the world. Farid said that even were every hair on his body a tongue, he could not describe Qutb ul Din's virtues. Qutb ul Din, on finding Farid deficient in scholarship, sent him to the shrine of Abdul Shakur of Sarsa to finish his education. On that occasion Farid repeated the following: O Farid, thou hast not walked in God's way, therefore He hath not appeared unto thee. Who is there who hath knocked at God's door, for whom it hath not been opened? Lose thy life on the way of the Friend, if thou desire to be even as those holy men. The high reputation Farid obtained in Dihli soon became irksome to him. He therefore made his way to Jhansi, where he remained for some time. Meantime his high priest in Dihli appears to have died. Upon this Farid paid a second visit to that city, and assumed the mantle of his late spiritual guide. He ultimately left it in the keeping of Jamal ul Din of Jhansi, and thence proceeded to Ajadan, the present Pakpatan, where he afterwards died, and where his followers now reside and receive offerings at his shrine. The manner in which the name of the place became changed to Pakpatan may be here stated. A canal, which derived its water from the Satluj, passed near the town. It was usual for all who visited Farid to wash their hands and feet there. The place then became known as Baba Sahib Ka Pakpatan, or Farid's cleansing ferry. When Farid first went to Ajadhan, it is said that he lived on the fruit of the jal and the wild caper. These formed his staple food even when he subsequently became great and famous. Abu Musalla, a qazi of Pakpatan, grew jealous of the newcomer Farid, and complained to the Subadar of Multan that he sang and danced. The Subadar forwarded the complaint to the Emperor, who issued an order as usual in the Persian language: Anra az Shahar ba dar Kunid, turn him out of the city. When this order reached the Subadar, he read Kazira az Shahar ba dar Kunid, turn the Qazi out of the city. The words, it was said, had been miraculously changed during the transit of the order from Dihli to Multan. When the Qazi heard of the order, he, deeming repentance convenient and more profitable than expulsion, fell at Farid's feet, implored his forgiveness, and became his disciple. The Qazi in due time gave his daughter in marriage to Farid's son, Makdum Badr ul Din. From this marriage was born Hazrat Allah ul Din Maji Daria. Farid, after some time, in accordance with his mother's advice, went to a forest and lived there as an anchoret for 12 years, subsisting on the leaves of trees. On his return, she began to comb his disheveled hair. Farid complained that the operation caused him pain. His mother replied that he must have caused similar pain to the trees when he robbed them of their leaves and fruit for food. It is written in the Quran that everything prays to God, hence the trees must be sentient beings. Farid then felt for the first time that his penance had been profitless. He accordingly set out on another pilgrimage of 12 years. This time, so as not to hurt any living thing, he tied a wooden cake to his stomach, and it is said subsisted on the imaginary sustenance it afforded him for the full term of his vow. If any one asked him to eat, he used to point to the wooden cake and say that he had already dined, and that the remainder of his meal was attached to his stomach. One day, in the dire pangs of hunger, it is said, he bit the wooden cake in the hope of satisfying his appetite. The reputed marks of his teeth are shown on a piece of wood still preserved in Pakpatan. Farid in his wanderings visited in A.D. 1244 the Girar Hill in the Wardha district of central India, and lived there for some time. Two travelers, who at first mocked him and subsequently felt the effects of his miraculous power, became his disciples. They died on the hill where their graves are still pointed out. Farid subsequently visited the hill of Datar in the state of Junagarh and abode there for some time. He was known under the name of Shakar Bhai. His fireplace near a spring called Qalandar Ka Chashma, the Qalandar's well, is still pointed out and revered by pilgrims. Hindu lepers visit the place to be healed of their malady, and in the event of success become Musalmans. Of such are the men in a temple on the slope of the hill, who have acquired several well-marked Mohammedan characteristics. His mother, finding that Farid on his return had not lost all remnants of pride, dismissed him to do penance for a third period of 12 years. This time, it is said, he caused himself to be suspended by the feet in a well. He used sometimes, when wearied by the unnatural position of his body, to go out and pray, and express his satisfaction with the divine will. It is said that birds used to build their nests in his hair, and beasts of prey to peck at or devour his flesh. He composed the following couplet in reference to these circumstances: Farid, thy body is on the stake, thy head hath become a cage, the crows peck at thy feet. If God come to me even now, happy shall be my lot. This couplet was subsequently expanded into the 90th, 91st, and 92nd sloks of Shaikh Brahm, found in the Granth Sahib. After 12 years thus occupied, it is said, a voice called out to him, God will grant any favour thou askest. Farid replied that he only desired salvation. Farid, on being questioned why he had endured so much penance, said that he desired to save all the followers of Muhammad whom he could fold within his arms. His questioner replied, Thou canst fold only 2 men within thine arms. Farid then stretched out his hands, whereupon one of them seemed to reach to the east and the other to the west, and he said, All persons within the circuit of my arms shall accept Islam and be saved. His questioner stood abashed on hearing this and became his disciple. It is stated in the Gulshan-e-Aulia that God had an understanding with Farid that he should give him 3 terms of life of 40 years each. After the first 40 years, God said, Thou hast been searching for me. After the second 40, God said, Thou hast done my bidding. After the third 40, God again said, Thou hast done my bidding. Now I will do thine. It would thus appear that after a holy career, Farid died at the age of 120 years. Other writers, however, as we shall see, assign the saint a shorter period of life. The fame of Farid's miracles widely extended, and some men through envy became exceedingly hostile to him. 2 Darweshes, displeased at his high reputation for sanctity and thaumaturgy, came from a great distance to kill him. Farid spoke gently to his intended murderers, with the result that they departed fully satisfied that he was a great saint and deserved praise rather than censure, long life rather than death. After that, 2 saints arrived from Mount Lebanon to decide the question as to who was the spiritual ruler of India. On making Farid's acquaintance, they became so enamored of the beauty and saintliness of his character that they decided to pass the remainder of their lives in his service. Others arrived on the same errand and from the same locality, so it was said that Lebanon was denuded of its male population. Farid in due time dismissed them all, saying that Lebanon was the home of saints and they ought not to abandon it. In the train of other holy men who came from Ghazni, Kabul, and other cities to the west of it to engage in missionary enterprise in India, was Ahmad Danyal of Bukhara, the father of Nizam-ul-Din Aulia. Having stayed for some time at Lahore, Ahmad Danyal in A.D. 1234 proceeded to Badon, then a famous city of Mohammedan learning. There, 3 years after his arrival, Nizam-ul-Din, originally called Muhammad, was born to him. Nizam-ul-Din was left an orphan at the age of 5 years. He was carefully and piously instructed by his mother, Zuleika, and in early youth showed such extraordinary ability that he was known as Nizam-ul-Din Bahas, or the controversialist, and Mafil Shikan, the assembly router. On arriving at manhood, he was offered by the emperor the coveted post of Qazi at Dihli, but that being principally of a secular character, he preferred to embrace a religious life and become a disciple of Farid. From him, according to Abul Fazal, author of the Ain-e-Akbari, he obtained the key of the treasury of inward illumination. Nizam-ul-Din had heard much of Farid and longed to meet him and receive his spiritual instruction. Farid, too, was equally anxious to meet such a holy man. He said he had had an inspiration to confer the spiritual sovereignty of Hindustan on a man called Nizam-ul-Din. Accordingly, when the 2 holy men met, Farid gave Nizam-ul-Din his patched coat and wooden shoes and appointed him head of the Mohammedan faith in India. He bade him be of good cheer and promised ever to assist him. On that occasion Farid made the following couplet: The fire of separation from thee roasteth our hearts, the torrent of thy love destroyeth our lives. These lines were intended to compliment Nizam-ul-Din on his personal popularity and the love with which he inspired his associates. In the time of the Emperor Nasir-ul-Din there was a celebrated preacher called Afzal Uddin in Dihli. He visited Farid in Ajadhan to hold a religious controversy with him, and was encountered by Nizam Uddin, whom Farid deputed for the purpose. Nizam Uddin gave Afzal Uddin most unexpectedly clever and satisfactory replies to all his arguments, whereat he marvelled greatly and departed, saying, "If the disciple is so, what must the master be?" Farid ultimately made Afzal Uddin a disciple of his. Farid used generally to reject offerings of money. One day the Emperor presented him with 2 plates of gold coins. Farid would only accept 2 muhars out of the imperial offerings. Those he accepted were devoted to the purchase of provisions for his public kitchen. The remainder he ordered to be distributed among faqirs. In the process of distribution, 2 of the coins fell and were picked up by a disciple of Farid. Farid, not observing this, began to pray, but could not fix his thoughts on God. He knew therefore that someone in the assembly must have worldly dross on him. After much enquiry he became aware of the act of his disciple, and ordered him to throw away the coins immediately. It was only then that Farid could fix his attention on his devotions. As an example of Farid's frugal habits, the following anecdote is related. Nizam Uddin Aulia one day cooked some coarse lentils, which he seasoned with borrowed salt. Farid ordered him to distribute the lentils and then give him his share. When it was brought to Farid, he said it savoured of excessive expenditure. Nizam Uddin admitted that he had seasoned it with borrowed salt, whereupon Farid said he had done wrong. Food obtained in that way should not be eaten. Upon this Farid sent the food away. Farid accompanied Bahauddin Zakaria at his request on another journey, namely to the mountain of Kaf, the Caucasus. On descending therefrom, they are said to have seen a man with a fiery dress riding on a fiery tiger, an allegory intended to represent the burning zeal of the first propagators of Islam. The man put Farid behind him and rode off with him for the conversion of the world. Farid, on returning to Ajadhan from his missionary journey, was hospitably received and entertained by Shaikh Nasir Ullah's mother, a widow named Bibi Kulsum, whom he afterwards married. She brought him valuable building land to the west of the town. Farid cherished Nasir Ullah and educated and brought him up as his own son. During Farid's absence in the Caucasus, a yogi gained great spiritual ascendancy over the people of Ajadhan and made many converts among them. In due time they all returned to Farid, who promptly repaired the mischief that had been done and restored his flock to their former spiritual allegiance. The Emperor Nasir Uddin deputed Nawab Alif Khan to present Farid with a large sum of money in gold and a perpetual grant of the revenue of 4 villages. Farid refused both the money and the grant, and told Alif Khan to take them to those who needed them. If he himself accepted them, he would no longer be reckoned a darwesh. Men would upbraid him for his worldliness, and on the day of judgment he would not be allowed to take his place in the ranks of the elect. On this occasion Farid cited the precepts and example of his priest, Qutb ul-Din Bakhtiar Ushi. Once the Emperor Shams-ul-Din Altmish sent him a dish of gold and silver coins and a lease of 6 villages. Qutb ul-Din rejected the royal offerings, saying that none of his predecessors had ever accepted such things, and were he to do so, he would be no true follower of theirs. When Nawab Alif Khan was on his return journey to Dihli, it occurred to him that the Emperor Nasir ul-Din had no heir, and he reflected that if he could secure Farid's intercession, he might become emperor himself. He therefore returned to Farid, who gave him the following verses. The great Faridun was not an angel. He was not constructed out of rosewater and ambergris. He obtained greatness by his justice and generosity. Dispense thou justice and generosity, and thou shalt be even as Faridun. Alif Khan, receiving these lines, joyfully returned to Dihli, and ultimately, on the death of Nasir ul-Din, was saluted emperor under the title of Gayas-ul-Din Balban. Farid went to Dihli during the lifetime of Nasir ul-Din and received a most hospitable reception. The emperor introduced him to his queens and made them his disciples. While in the female apartments, Farid's glance fell on Hazabra, the emperor's daughter. Farid first looked at her and then looked up to heaven. He inquired whose daughter she was, and on being duly informed took his departure. The Emperor understood Farid's desire, and sent his prime minister to offer him Hasrabra in marriage. Farid, who had already made up his mind on the subject, said that God, the Prophet, and the elders of the Kistis had all given him orders to ally himself with the Emperor's daughter. He averred that he had seen a sign on Hasrabra's forehead that she was intended for him. Upon that occasion Farid addressed God: "Thou hast drawn away my heart from thy love, and inclined it in another direction." God is said to have replied: "Perform the marriage for the love of my friend the Prophet." Farid prayed God to pardon him. God again replied: "I have an object in this. When sons are born to thee, it shall be to the advantage of thy people, and they shall be pardoned." Farid, still anxious on the subject, urged: "If any of my descendants sin, I shall be called to account in thy court." God replied: "Keep the good children thyself, and entrust the bad ones to me." Farid and the Emperor's daughter were duly married. The Emperor sent 300 servants to wait on her. Of these Farid only allowed her to retain 2 men and 2 women. The first night the lady, richly apparelled, lay on a gorgeous couch. Farid produced his prayer carpet and slept on it, on the ground near her. Next day she told her nurse that Farid had not approached her. The nurse remonstrated with him on the subject. He replied that he did not approve of the regal style the lady had adopted. She must sell her jewels and rich dresses, devote the price of them to God's service, and wear the habit of a darwesh. When the lady received this message, she said she would do as her husband had ordered. She accordingly devoted the proceeds of the sale of her jewels and dresses to the relief of the poor. Farid then procured for her wear a coarse jacket of a dirty brown color, black pajamas, green glass bangles, and a pewter nose ring. The Emperor was not pleased that his daughter should appear in such mean habiliments, and again supplied her with new clothes and jewelry to wear instead of what she had rejected at her husband's desire. The new articles she again gave to the poor. A third time the Emperor sent her what he deemed suitable apparel and ornaments, but she and her husband parted with them as before. The Emperor continued to send her presents, but they were only a source of disagreement between her husband and herself. At last the lady proposed that they should leave Dihli and proceed to Pakpatan. This was agreed upon. Farid left his brother Najib-ul-Din to do spiritual duty for him in Dihli. It may be here stated that the females of the shrine are still married in dresses similar to what Farid procured for his wife. After the honeymoons, raiment more suitable to their worldly position is adopted. The Emperor's daughter bore Farid 5 sons: Badr-ul-Din, Shahab-ul-Din, Nizam-ul-Din, Yaqub, and Abdullah Shah, and 3 daughters: Fatima, Mastur, and Sharifa. In the Itrat-i Farida it is stated that Farid had a 3rd wife named Najib-ul-Nissa, sister of Shaikh Zakaria, and we shall subsequently see that he procured a 4th wife on the Panjab mountains. Farid, being once very ill, sent Nizam-ul-Din and other darweshes to a cemetery to pray for him. The idea was and is that prayers offered in the presence of men who have gone to God are acceptable and successful. The prayer, however, proved of no avail. Upon this one of the darweshes remarked that the prayers of the worthless were of no advantage to the perfect, that is, the prayers of ordinary darweshes could not benefit Farid. This expression was subsequently repeated to Farid by Nizam-ul-Din. Farid was pleased with the compliment and, it is said, granted Nizam-ul-Din supernatural power. Nizam-ul-Din then returned to the cemetery, prayed for Farid's recovery, and on his return found him in perfect health. To show the spiritual and social position held by the family, it is related that Farid addressed his cousin as Hazrat Gaus Sheikh Baha-ul-Din Zakaria. His cousin addressed him in reply: Mashuk-i Kuda wa Ashik-i Zat-i Kibriya Farid Bardi Alam Shah Shakar Ganj Ajohani Kishti. Beloved of God and loving the Almighty Being, Farid, unique in the world, king treasury of sugar, Chisti of Ajadhan. Sheikh Badr-ul-Din, descended from a noble family of Ghazni, was a disciple of Kitab-ul-Din of Dihli. Farid, highly impressed with Badr-ul-Din's reputation for sanctity, went one day to visit him. Badr ul Din had nothing for him to eat, so he sent his coarse blanket to the market to be sold for whatever it would fetch, in order to provide a meal for his distinguished guest. Malik Nizam ul Din, a different person from the Nizam ul Din Aulia with whom we have been concerned, made a monastery for Shaikh Badr ul Din, who was pleased to reside in it, and dispensed to the poor the provisions which Nizam ul Din had provided for them in abundance. It happened that this Nizam ul Din subsequently in some way offended the Emperor and was imprisoned. Badr ul Din wrote to Farid to pray to God for his release. Farid refused on the ground that Nizam ul Din had constructed a monastery for self-aggrandizement, a course which was not in accordance with the humble practice of his predecessors, who sought retirement and self-effacement. There was a religious man called Shams Dabir, who lived in great indigence in Sunam in the present state of Patiala. He wrote some verses in praise of Farid and went to him to recite them. Farid, on hearing the eulogium, asked the poet what he wanted. Shams Dabir replied that he was very poor and had not wherewithal to support his aged mother. Farid replied that he gave not money, but he would pray very fervently for him. Shams Dabir ultimately became secretary to the Emperor's prime minister. The Emperor Ala ul Din Masad made Hamid, a learned man, his viceroy of Bengal. One day as Hamid was standing with clasped hands before the Emperor, a form of light appeared to him and asked why he was standing in a suppliant attitude before a fool. The same question was asked Hamid the next day and the next day again. Upon this he resigned his post and proceeded to Ajadhan, whither he was attracted by Farid's spiritual power. On reaching Farid's dwelling, he fell down and kissed his threshold. When Farid had heard his story, he made him his disciple and gave him the patched coat of a Khalifa. Hamid remained for some time with Farid and became a very eloquent preacher. Farid often called him a bright particular star, but at the same time remarked that a star looks not bright in the presence of the sun, a subtle compliment to himself. Farid suggested that he should return and live in the town of Andina near Dihli and benefit God's people by his preaching. Hamid, however, stated that his intention was rather to make a pilgrimage to Makkah and Medina, the cities hallowed by the residence of his prophet. Upon this, Farid allowed him to take his departure. Maulana Badr ul Din, son of Sayyid Minhaj ul Din Najari, was professor of Arabic in the Mohammedan College of Dihli. In the course of his theological studies, he encountered several difficulties for which he could receive no satisfactory solution from the holy men of his acquaintance. He therefore resolved to travel to Bukhara, then the seat of some of the greatest Mohammedan scholars of the age. He went by Multan, whose learned men also he wished to consult. On the way he met some pious hermits, one of whom was a disciple of Farid and had Farid's name ever on his tongue. Badr ul Din, after a short conference with him, told him he was wasting his time in such occupation. The disciple said he could not help it, for Farid's name issued spontaneously from his lips. The disciple and his friends then suggested to Badr ul Din to pay Shaykh Farid a visit, and perhaps he would solve some of his difficulties. Badr ul Din replied that he had met several sheikhs, that they were merely impostors, and that men wasted their time in converse with them. The disciple and his friends argued the matter with Badr ul Din and represented to him that he could only appreciate Shaykh Farid's merits when he had made his acquaintance. Badr ul Din at last gave way, and was conducted by his casual friends to Farid. Farid solved his theological difficulties in a satisfactory manner, and then made him his disciple. Upon this, Badr ul Din decided not to proceed to Bukhara, but remain in Ajadhan with Farid. He became so humble that he used to wait on holy men, cut firewood in the forest, and cook their food with it. He was at the same time very attentive to his devotions, and used to mortify his body with fasting. Once, when there was a marriage in Pakpatan, Badr ul Din, on seeing the relations of the bride draw water with which to bathe the bride and bridegroom according to ancient custom, thought that if he were in his own country and among his people, his own marriage also might be duly celebrated. Some time afterwards, Badr ul Din proceeded on a pilgrimage to Makkah and Medina. On his return, Farid informed him of the thoughts which had passed through his mind on seeing water drawn to bathe the bride and bridegroom, and said he could either have a temporal or a permanent marriage as he deemed most advantageous. By permanent marriage Farid meant death, as among the ancient Greeks, and if Badr ul Din desired it, not only water but milk and sugar should ever be offered at his shrine, and the fame of such a marriage should resound both in earth and heaven. It would appear from the Jawahir-i-Faridi that Badr ul Din accepted both forms of marriage. Farid gave him his daughter Fatima in marriage. He also made him his chamberlain with the title of Badr ul Diwan. Whenever Farid spoke to him on the subject of appointing him to a position corresponding with that of bishop in partibus infidelium, he used to reply that he desired to live forever under Farid's shadow. Farid built him a house near the great mosque of the city, and there he lived in the service of God. After his death, a mausoleum was erected over his remains. As promised by Shaikh Farid, his marriage ceremonies are celebrated once a year by a fair held on the 6th day of the month Jamadi ul Sani, when copious libations of sharbat are offered at his shrine. One day as Farid awoke from a trance, he said, "The eye which looketh not towards God had better be blind. The tongue which uttereth not His name had better be dumb. The ear which heareth not His praises had better be deaf. And the body which performeth not His service had better be dead." After this utterance, Farid relapsed into his trance. Once 700 holy men were sitting together. An inquirer put them 4 questions to which they gave identically the same replies. Question 1. Who is the wisest of men? Answer. He who refraineth from sin. Question 2. Who is the most intelligent? Answer. He who is not disconcerted by anything. Question 3. Who is the most independent? Answer. He who practiseth contentment. Question 4. Who is the most needy? Answer. He who practiseth it not. The following sentences are taken from Farid's sermons. God hesitateth to raise his hand against his creatures. Be not overjoyed with worldly wealth, and if thou have none at all, be not depressed. The day we obtain not our desires should be to us as a time of rejoicing, like the night of the prophet's ascension into heaven. Man should not allow his ambition to be cooled by the discouraging remarks of the world. When a fakir putteth on rich clothes, they become his winding sheet. Of all attractions, attraction towards devotion is the best. It fareth well with him who thinketh on his own faults, and not on the faults of others. To the pure all things are pure, nothing can defile them. If you aspire to attain the dignity of the departed saints, bow not to monarchs. The learned man is the most noble among men, and the holy man the most noble among noblemen. The holy man among the learned is like the full moon among the stars. The most contemptible of men is he who occupieth himself with eating and dressing. The repetition of the following lines gave great spiritual comfort to Farid. Last night sad thoughts possessed me, but afterwards I reflected on my beautiful lover. I said I would do everything to go to his door. My tears ran, and my lover then caught my sleeve. A student asked Farid if singing were lawful and proper. He replied that according to the Muhammadan religion it was certainly unlawful, but its propriety was still a matter of discussion. Nizam ul Din Aulia told Nasir ul Din, a disciple of his, that one day when he went to visit Farid, he stood at his door and saw him dancing as he sang the following: I wish ever to live in thy love, O God. If I become the dust under thy feet, I shall live. I, thy slave, desire none but thee in both worlds. For thee I will live, and for thee I will die. The following was a favorite couplet of Farid: Not every heart is capable of finding the secret of God's love. There are not pearls in every sea. There is not gold in every mine. One of Farid's beloved friends was Sheikh Jamal ul Din of Hanzi, whom he called his senior Khalifa. Hazrat Sheikh Baha ul Din Zakaria of Multan, hearing of this man's fame, begged Farid to lend him to preach to the faithful. Farid refused, but when pressed by Jamal ul Din, who was attracted to Baha ul Din by supernatural influence, replied, Go and blacken thy face. It is said that upon this Jamal ul Din's face became black, and he fled to the forest to hide himself from human gaze. Farid forbade all persons to intercede for him or assist him in any way. It happened that, as a man called Alim was going to Ajadhan from Multan, he met Jamal ul Din on the way. Jamal ul Din begged him to intercede with Farid, and he did so. Lapse of time and importunity caused Farid to relent. He wrote to Jamal ul Din the four following lines, and then restored him to favour. Go round the world, and in wandering raise blisters on thy feet. If thou find any one like me, then forsake me. Come one morning with pure heart to my door. If thou attain not thine object, then make complaint. Jamal ul Din returned to Farid, and Farid's love for him increased after the rupture. Jamal ul Din was a descendant of Abu Hanifa of Kusa. Farid visited Mokalhar, now called Farid Kot, in honor of the saint. The country was then ruled by Mokal. At the time of Farid's visit, Mokal was building his capital and used to impress all visitors for the work. Though Farid wore the patched coat of a religious man, he too was pressed into the Raja's service. The masons and workmen, on making Farid's acquaintance, bowed at his feet and prayed him to grant them forgiveness of their sins. The Raja too followed their example, and for some days personally waited on him. Farid asked what name the king was going to give his city. The king replied, Mokalhar. Then said Farid, Barun Khair wa Andaran Dar. It is fair without, but a ruin within, by which the saint meant that it should never be thoroughly inhabited. The king represented his hard fate to Farid. Though thousands of rupees had been spent on his capital, no one came to dwell in it. If His Holiness Farid ordered, it should soon be full of inhabitants. Farid then told him to change the name and dwell in it himself. Mokal consented and called the city Farid Kot in compliment to his holy guest. Farid then said, Go, God the Most High will cause thee and thy descendants to abide in that fort. There is a legend that Farid once visited a city on the Panjab mountains. One day as he was bathing, a beautiful young lady accidentally saw and conceived a desire to approach him, for a son by such a man should become king of the realm of beauty. It is said that Jamila Khatun, the beautiful lady, while revolving this in her mind, became pregnant. After Farid's departure, there was great commotion in the tribe on hearing of the young lady's condition. She averred that she had committed no impropriety, but no one would believe her. Every one said it was, of course, that stranger Farid's doing. Farid chanced to return to that part of the country 6 months afterwards. He was charged with the young lady's seduction, which, apart from being a sin, was a grievous offense against the tribe. He solemnly denied the charge, but no one would accept his statement. He requested his accusers to ask the lady if she had ever conceived a desire to have a child by him. She then admitted that such a desire had arisen in her mind. Upon this, Farid, in self-defense, instanced the well-known case of Jesus having been born without a human father, and also the case of Adam, who had been produced without father or mother, and said that nothing was impossible to God's omnipotence, and he might in his mercy have given a son to the Virgin. The tribe heeded not Farid's words, and said they would only believe him if he wrought a miracle in their presence. They found no difficulty in suggesting a subject. They told him that no sugar cane grew in their country. If he went with them to the forest and caused sugar to rain, they would accept his story of the young lady's immaculate pregnancy, but not otherwise. Farid then said in the Persian language, which he habitually spoke, Chai ajab az afrigare ki zanzibikar ra aza quadrat e kamila e kud hamila bi wasta shohar sakt az azman shakar nisar farmyad. What wonder would it be if the Creator, who out of His perfect power maketh a virgin pregnant without human intervention, should rain sugar? It is said that sugar immediately began to rain, and from that time Farid obtained the name of Shakar Ganj, the treasury of sugar. After this miracle, all the people of the tribe became as followers, and he was formally wedded to Jamila Khatun, who soon afterwards gave birth to a son. Farid remained there for 6 months, during which time he fasted 40 days. He locked up the house in which he had dwelt, saying that his successor would open it, and then return to Ajad Khan. As his successor, Diwan Taj ul Din was returning from a pilgrimage to Makkah and Medina. He happened to visit that part of the country. He asked the people to what tribe they belonged. They said that they were descendants of Katab ul Alam Baba, Farid Shakar Ganj. He inquired from which of Farid's sons they were descended. They replied that they had not come in that way, but had been miraculously born. When Taj ul Din had heard the whole story, he unlocked the door of Farid's hut. The people were delighted to see Taj ul Din, and became his followers in large numbers. Farid died of pneumonia on the 5th day of the month of Muharram, AH 664, AD 1266. The date of Farid's death is commemorated by the chronograms: A. Farid Asari, B. Aralia Khudai. He was unique, a saint of God. Farid's last words were in Arabic: Ya Hayyo, Ya Qayyum, O ever living, O eternal God. At the last word Qayyum, Farid expired. Farid was to have been buried outside the town of Pak Patan at a place called the Martyrs' Graves, where he had first alighted on his arrival, but his son Makdum Khwaja Nizam ul Din arrived in time to alter the proposed arrangement. This son, who had been a general in the Emperor's army, was then living in retreat at Patali. As he lay asleep one night before his father's death, he thought he heard his father calling him. He arose and went to Ajadhan, but as the gates of the town were all locked at the time, he could not gain access to Farid's dwelling. Farid knew of his son's arrival, but it was too late to see him. His advice, however, said Farid, should be taken in all matters regarding my funeral and burial. The son advised that the family should wait for Nizam ul Din Aulia from Dihli and express his intention of temporarily burying his father in the house where he had lived, and where subsequently his eldest son, Khwaja Shahab ul Din, was buried. On the arrival of Nizam ul Din Aulia from Dihli, he had a mausoleum erected for Farid. He directed that the Quran should be read over clean bricks, that the reader should then blow on them and employ them for the construction of Farid's grave. This direction was obeyed. The Hafizes and the Khalifas read the Quran over bricks consecrated as directed, and made Farid's grave with them. A shrine was built with stone windows on the east and north sides for women to see through, and with a door on the south side, to be called the Bahisti Darwaza, or Gate of Paradise, for men to enter by. The body was then exhumed from its temporary grave, and after being well perfumed, placed within the mausoleum thus constructed. It is said that the souls of Muhammad and all the Muhammadan saints appeared on the occasion. At the advice of Nizam ul Din Aulia, the stone window at the east was broken at Farid's reinterment to admit of the exit of the souls of the Prophet and his saints. Where the soul of Muhammad had taken up its position within the mausoleum, there was a hujra, or small chapel built, called Qadam Rasul, or the Prophet's footsteps. Nizam ul Din then stated that he had received a message from the departed Farid that God would pardon and save from hell all who passed through the paradisal gate. This was everywhere proclaimed from the rising to the setting of the sun. Some persons, however, who had no internal eyes, refused to believe that the gate possessed such supreme efficacy. Upon this, Nizam ul Din said to the Prophet, "If the populace be allowed to behold thee, their spiritual darkness shall be dispelled." It is said that the Prophet then appeared to the whole multitude, and not a scintilla of doubt remained in any one's mind as to the advantages to be obtained from passing through the sacred portal. It was subsequently ordered that women should pray at the stone window on the north side, and that a wall should be built outside it to secure their privacy. The door opening to the east was then called the Door of Light. It is that by which men generally enter and leave the shrine. After Farid's death, his son Badr ul Din Sulayman succeeded him in his spiritual, and Sayyid Malvi Badr ul Din Ishaq in his temporal duties. Envious persons set the two Badr ul Dins at variance, upon which Nizam ul Din Aulia came from Dihli and made peace between them. We have mentioned the Rahat ul Qulub as one of our authorities for the life of Farid. The first entry in it was made on the 11th of the month Rajab, AH 655, AD 1254, and the last on the 25th of Safar, AH 656. The diary thus shows Farid's acts and conversations for the space of 11 months. We shall here give some extracts from it. Farid considered that fakiri, or holiness, consisted in four things, namely, to be blind to the faults of Muhammadans, to be deaf to slander, to be dumb when evil speaking is suggested, and to be lame when there is a desire to visit evil places. On one occasion, Shaikh Badr ul Din of Ghazni, Jamal ul Din of Hanzi, Sharaf ul Din of Nabha, and Qazi Hamid ul Din of Nagar met at Farid's house. Farid dilated to them on the virtues of hospitality, and said it was proper for a host to give something to every guest, whether he received an equivalent or not. At a religious conference at Farid's house, where were assembled Maulvi Hamid ul Din of Nagaur, Sheikh Shams ul Din, Sheikh Burhan ul Din, and others, Sheikh Farid mentioned an expression in the hadiths, or traditional sayings of the Prophet, that love of the world was the source of all evil. A man called Sheikh Abdallah Sahel of Tashtar said that God and man were all one. There was no difference between them except that in proportion as man loved the world, he fell away from God. Farid expressed his concurrence with this statement, and added that the heart was like a mirror, and love of mammon was as rust on it, which should be removed by the file of God's love. Land covered with tares and thistles produced no good crop until they were eradicated. Fakirs should remain aloof from the world, and not visit even kings and nobles. Once when the king of Iraq was ill, he sent for Abdallah Sohel to treat him. Sohel cured him, but thought it necessary to expiate the offense of visiting a king by living a life of absolute retirement for 7 years. The friendship of wealthy men was, in his opinion, as poison for holy men. When a holy man associates with such men, his influence on others is injurious to them. Abdullah defined the word tariqat, a spiritual stage of Mohammedans, to mean absolute disregard for the things of this world. Farid said he had lived for 10 years with the Saint Abu Yusuf Kisti, and during that time had never moved a foot in the direction of a king or noble, except on Fridays when he went to pray, for prayers should be said in common on the Sabbath. He thought that whenever a fakir has visited a monarch, his patched coat and hat ought afterwards to be burned in order to remove the contagion of wealth and pride. It is not surprising to hear that a man of Farid's sanctity and force of character made many converts among the Hindus within the reach of his influence. The Balis, the Sirhangs, the Jakars, and the Andakans are enumerated among the tribes whom he induced to accept Islam. When Badr ul Din Sulayman, Farid's son, succeeded him, he was invested with the turban which Farid himself had received from Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, Hazrat Gaus. The turban was of 3 colors, saffron at one end, brown at the other, and white in the center. Nizam ul Din purchased several white turbans and steeped them with Abdul Qadir Jilani's in the same pot. The object of this was that Abdul Qadir Jilani's turban might communicate some of its virtues to the white turbans, and that the latter, after such contact, might confer blessings on Farid's disciples and friends when they bound them on their heads. When Badr ul Din had put on Abdul Qadir Jilani's turban, and Farid's disciples and friends the white turbans, the whole company went outside the gate of paradise and sat down. Sweets were produced, and a priest read texts from the Quran over them. They were then distributed for the repose of the souls of the Kisti Khalwajas, to whom Farid spiritually belonged. This custom is still observed by the followers of Farid. On the approach of the Muharram, the Quran is read over a jug of sharbat for the souls of ancestors, and the sharbat is then distributed among the faithful. When the Muharram begins, there is singing after breakfast, to which the high priest listens on his carpet of prayer. The whole audience then enters on a state of exaltation. The priest puts on a turban like Farid's, and binds white turbans on the heads of his brethren and disciples. On the 5th day of the Muharram, he opens the gate of paradise, and the crowd enters with a rush, in the hope that, when they cross the barrier, they shall secure in reality the bliss of the elect. The gate of paradise is a small door in the shrine, which is only opened twice a year, and on both occasions at night. In our time, the crowd which passes through, shouting Haji Kutab Farid, or simply Farid, to maintain their fervor, has been estimated sometimes at 30,000 souls. To reach the gate of paradise, 3 outer portals have to be traversed. Among the immense crowd there is a rivalry to reach heaven in the shortest time, not by good deeds, but by physical strength, and in this struggle numbers are continually maimed, and some aged and infirm persons occasionally killed. Were not a large force of police, generally reinforced from neighboring districts, marched to the shrine to maintain order, great indeed would be the destruction of human life at this religious ceremony. Men are not content to pass the gate for themselves, they return again and again to vicariously conduct their female relatives to the abode of bliss, and this reiterated service increases the crowd, the confusion, and the danger to human life. On the seventh day of the Muharram there is again singing. The reading of the Quran is finished, and the gate of paradise is left open. On the 10th of the month, Farid's mausoleum is washed and perfumed within and without. In the month of Ramzan, the banners which Abdul Qadir Jilani received from Madina and gave to Farid are taken out and fitted with new cloth. The high priest's followers present him with an ordinary coat and a patched coat, meaning thereby temporal and spiritual raiment. When he puts them on, the prayers appointed for the Id in the end of Ramzan are read. Farid's cup, stick, and rosary are then produced and prayers offered. The high priest, with a rosary in one hand and Farid's staff in the other, begs for alms, upon which his followers present him with cakes of sugar, almonds, and coconuts. Such offerings are afterwards distributed among the poor. It remains to add a few words regarding Nizam ul Din Aulia, the author of the Rahat ul Kulub, and Farid's faithful friend and disciple. He states that he visited Ajad Khan 3 times during the life of Farid, and Farid charged him with the education of his children. Subsequently, Nizam ul Din was sent by Farid as Khalifa or spiritual ruler of Hindustan, and in that capacity amassed great wealth and became known as Zarizar Baft, woven or altogether of gold, a name given him by Bu Ali Shah, a religious man of Panipat. It is probable that Nizam ul Din's great wealth aroused the jealousy of Mubarak Khulji, who ascended the Dihli throne in A.D. 1317. He summoned Shaikh Rukn ul Din from Multan in the hope of counteracting Nizam ul Din's unquestionably great influence with the people. Nizam ul Din went forth to meet the man who had been chosen as his antagonist, and produced a highly favorable impression on him. When the emperor afterwards asked Rukn ul Din, who had been the principal person to go forth and welcome him to Dihli, Rukn ul Din replied, "The foremost man of the age," by which he meant Nizam ul Din. The emperor, after this testimony to Nizam ul Din's greatness, withdrew his opposition to him and allowed him to dwell in peace. The imperial hostility to Nizam ul Din descended to Gayas ul Din Tughlaq, one of the successors of Mubarak Khilji. When Gayas ul Din was returning from his expedition to Bengal, he no longer desired to see Nizam ul Din and ordered him to leave the city. Nizam ul Din had no alternative but to obey, but decided to do so at leisure. He said to his friends, "Hanaz, Dihli dur ast," Dihli is still far off, by which he meant that the emperor should never reach Dihli. The emperor on his homeward march put up in a house at Afghanpur, hastily constructed for his reception by his son Alaf Khan. The house fell upon the monarch and killed him in A.D. 1325. The emperor's death was popularly attributed to his hostility to the saint. Nizam ul Din's expression, "Dihli is far off," has passed into a proverb. It corresponds to the English saying, "There is many a slip 'twixt the cup and the lip." Nizam ul Din himself died the same year as the emperor. Nizam ul Din, notwithstanding his worldly success, raised many men in Dihli, Bengal, Chanderi, Malwar, Bihar, Ujjain, Gujarat, and the Deccan to the heights of spiritual sanctity, having conferred his caliphaship on Khwaja Hazrat Nasir ul Din Chirag. He died in Dihli on Wednesday, the 18th day of Rabi ul Sani, AH 725, AD 1325, that is, 60 years after the death of his beloved priest. He was buried in a quarter then known as Gayasper. He wrote the following Persian lines in praise of Farid: Piri Man, priest Maulana Farid, Ham Chu Odar Sihar Mala Na Farid. My priest is the holy Farid. God created no one in the world like him. End of section 22. Section 23 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6, by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 23. Hymns of Shaikh Farid. Miscellaneous Religious Instruction. Asa. Saith Shaikh Farid, my dear friends, attach yourselves to God. This body shall become dust, and its abode be the unhonored grave. Today God can be met. Shaikh Farid, if thou restrain the feelings which agitate thy mind. Had I known that I should die and not return again, I would not have devoted myself to this false world and ruined myself. Honestly speak the truth, utter not falsehood. The disciple ought to travel by the way the Guru pointeth out. When the lover is saved, the heart of the beloved taketh courage. Thou who turnest to the glitter of gold shalt be split in twain by the saw. O Shaikh, no man's life is permanent in this world. How many have sat on the seats on which we sit? As Kulangs come in Kartik, forest fires in Chet, lightning in Sawan. As woman's arms adorn her husband's neck in winter, so transitory things pass away. Reflect on this in thy mind. Man taketh 6 months to form and 1 moment to break up. The earth asked heaven, saith Farid, how many pilots had passed away? Some have been burnt, others are in the cemeteries, and their souls suffer reproaches from the angels of death. Farid's longing to meet God. Suhi, on account of the severe burning of high fever induced by separation from God, I wring my hands. I have grown crazy, longing for my spouse. Thou, O spouse, wast angry with me in thy heart. It was through my demerits and not my spouse's fault. My Lord, I did not know thy worth. I have lost my youth and repent too late. O black cockle, why art thou black? The cockle, I have been burnt by separation from my beloved. Can she who is separated from her beloved ever be happy? If the Lord be merciful, he will cause me to meet him. Painful is the well into which lone woman hath fallen. She hath no companions and no helper. Thou hast mercifully, O God, caused me to meet thy saints. When I look again, God is my helper. My way is thoroughly tedious. It is sharper than a two-edged sword and very narrow. Over that is my passage. Shaikh Farid, prepare thyself betimes for that road. Sloks of Shaikh Farid. 1. The day that woman was to be married was previously fixed. The spouse, the angel of death, of whom we have heard, hath come to show his face. Having cracked the bones of the body, he will take away the poor soul. The time recorded cannot be altered. Explain this to thy soul. The soul is the bride, death the bridegroom. He will marry her and take her away. As she goeth, whose neck shall she run to embrace with her arms? Have you not heard of the bridge of Sarat, which is finer than a hair? Farid, when the summons cometh, arise and deceive yourselves not. 2. Farid, since I walk in the way of the world, it is difficult to be like the darwesh at God's gate. I have tied and taken up my bundle of worldliness. Whither shall I go to throw it away? 3. I know nothing, I see nothing. The world is a smouldering fire. My master did well to warn me, otherwise I too should have been burnt. 4. Farid, had I known my sesames were to be so few, I should have husbanded my handfuls. Had I known that the bridegroom was so young, I should have been less vain. 5. Had I known that my dress was opening, I should have put a fast knot on it. So great as thou, I have found none. I have seen and wandered the world over. 6. Farid, if thou have acute wisdom, write not a black mark against others. Bend thy head and look beneath thy collar. 7. Farid, if men beat thee with their fists, beat them not in return. Nay, kiss their feet and go home. 8. Farid, when it was time for thee to earn, thou wast in love with the world. Death's foundations are strong. When the last breath is drawn, thy soul shall be packed away. 9. See, Farid, what hath occurred. Thy beard hath grown gray. The future is near. The past is left far behind. 10. See, Farid, what hath occurred. Sugar hath become poison. To whom shall I tell my sorrow except to my Lord? 11. Farid, mine eyes have seen enough, and mine ears heard enough. The tree of the body hath become ripe, and hath assumed another color. 12. Farid, hath any one who enjoyed not her spouse when her hair was black, enjoyed him when her hair was gray? Love thy spouse, so shall the color of thy hair be restored. Guru Amar Das offers the following objection to this couplet. 13. Farid, whether man's hair be black or gray, the Lord is ever present, if any one remember him. Even if all men desire to love God, they will not succeed by their own endeavours. This cup of love belongeth to God. He giveth it to whom He pleaseth. 14. Farid, I have seen those eyes which charm the world. They could not endure the streak of lamp black, yet in them birds have hatched their young. 15. Farid, men shout and shriek and ever give advice, but how can they whom the devil hath led astray turn their thoughts to God? 16. Farid, if thou long for the Lord of all, become the grass on the pathway for men to tread on. When one man breaketh thee, and another trampleth on thee, then shalt thou enter the court of the Lord. 17. Farid, revile not dust, there is nothing like it. When we are alive, it is beneath our feet. When we are dead, it is above us. 18. Farid, where there is greed, what love can there be? Where there is greed, the love is false. How long canst thou pass thy time in a broken hut in the rain? 19. Farid, why wanderest thou from forest to forest, breaking down branches and thorns? It is in the heart God dwelleth. Why seekest thou Him in the forest? 20. Farid, with these spindle shanks I have traversed plains and mountains, but today for Farid to lift his jug hath become as toilsome as a journey of hundreds of miles. 21. Farid, the nights have grown long, my sides ache and ache. Curse on the lives of those who have hopes other than in God. The following was written on Farid's missing the visit of a holy friend who had come to see him. 22. Farid, had I been present when my friend came, I would have devoted myself to him. Now my body burneth like matter on the cinders, and I cannot pay him a return visit. 23. Farid, the yacht planteth the kikar, yet he wanteth the grape tree of Bijour. He spinneth wool, yet he wanteth to wear silk. 24. Farid, in the streets there is mud. The house of my dear friend whom I love is distant. If I go to him, I shall wet my blanket. If I remain at home, our love shall be severed. 25. O God, though thou send thy rain and wet and drench my blanket, yet shall I go to meet that friend so that our love may not be severed. It is said that when Farid was one day putting on his turban, it slipped from his hand. The following was composed on the occasion. 26. Farid, I fear that my turban will be soiled. My thoughtless soul knoweth not that dust will rot my head also. 27. Sugar unrefined and refined, loaf sugar, molasses, honey, and buffalo's milk are all sweet things, but not, O God, so sweet as thou. 28. Farid, my bread is made of wood. Hunger is my condiment. They who eat buttered bread shall suffer great pain. 29. Eat hard, dry bread and drink cold water. Farid, on seeing another's buttered bread, let not thy heart long for it. 30. I slept not with my husband last night. My body is pining away. Go ask the wife whom her husband hath put away, how she passeth the night. Guru Amar Das has given the following reply to this question. 31. She findeth no entrance to the house of her father-in-law, and no place with her parents. Can she for whom her husband careth not be called a happy wife? 32. Woman, whether in this world or the next, belongeth to her spouse, the inaccessible and unfathomable one. Nanak, she is a happy wife who is pleasing to God, the unconcerned. 33. They who bathe and wash and adorn themselves, and then heedlessly sleep regardless of their spouses, Farid, are as it were smeared all over with asafoetida, and the perfume of their musk departeth. 34. I dread not the departure of youth. If my spouse's love depart not therewith. Farid, how often hath youth become dry and withered without love. 35. Farid, my bed is anxiety, its bottom affliction, its mattress and coverlet separation from God. Such is my life. Do thou, O true God, look upon me. 36. Men continually speak of love. O love, thou art a monarch. Farid, deem the body in which there is not love a place of cremation. 37. Farid, pleasures are like poisonous sprouts smeared with sugar. Some die while planting them, others are ruined while gathering them. 38. Farid, men have lost the 4 watches of the day in wandering, and the 4 watches of the night in sleep. God will call for thine account, and ask why thou camest into the world. 39. Farid, when thou wentest to the gate of the court, sawest thou not the gong? When that sinless thing is thus beaten, what shall be the condition of us sinners? 40. It is beaten, every ghari, and receiveth complete punishment at the end of every watch. So the body, like the gong, passeth a painful night. 41. Shaikh Farid hath grown old, and his body hath begun to totter. Were he to live even for hundreds of years, his body would become dust at last. 42. Saith Farid, allow me not, O Lord, to sit and beg at another's gate. If that is how thou art about to treat me, then take the life from my body. 43. O blacksmith, thou goest to the forest with thine axe on thy shoulder and thy water pot on thy head. Saith Farid, I am longing for my Lord, thou art longing for charcoal. 44. Farid, some have a great deal of flour, others have not even salt. When they have all departed, it will be known who shall suffer punishment. 45. They who had drums and trumpets and umbrellas over their heads, and bards to sound their praises, went to sleep in the cemetery, and were buried as if they had been poor orphans. 46. Farid, they who built houses, mansions, and lofty palaces also departed. False was their business, and they dropped into their graves. 47. Farid, there are many tacks on the patched coat to make it last, but there are no such tacks on the soul. Sheikhs and their disciples have departed, each in his turn. 48. Farid, while the two lamps of man's eyes are shining, the angel of death cometh and seateth himself on his body. He captureth the fortress, robbeth it of the soul, and having put out the lamp, departeth. 49. Farid, see what happeneth to cotton, what befalleth sesame, sugar cane, paper, earthen utensils, and charcoal. The punishment they receive awaiteth those who do evil. 50. Farid, men carry prayer carpets on their shoulders, wear a Sufi's robe, and speak sweetly, but there are knives in their hearts. Externally they appear bright, but in their hearts is sable night. 51. Farid, if any one were to cut my body, not a drop of blood would issue from it, since the body which is dyed with God containeth no blood. On this couplet Guru Amar Das made the following commentary. 52. This body is all blood. The body cannot exist without blood, but the blood of greed entereth not the body which is dyed with its Lord. When the fear of the Lord entereth the heart, the body groweth lean, and the blood of greed departeth from it. As metals are purified by fire, so the fear of the Lord removeth the filth of evil inclinations. Nanak, that man is handsome who is dyed with the love of God. 53. Farid, search the lake where the real thing is to be found. What availeth it to search in a pond? One's hand merely sinketh into the mud. 54. Farid, the little girl did not enjoy her spouse. When she grew up, she died. Lying in the grave, she calleth, I have not met thee, O my Lord. 55. Farid, the hair of my head is gray, my beard is gray, my mustaches also are gray. O my heedless and insensate soul, why art thou devoted to sensual pleasures? 56. Farid, how far canst thou run on a housetop? Banish thine indifference to the dear one. The days which were counted and allotted thee have passed away in vain. 57. Farid, attach not thy heart to houses, mansions, and lofty palaces. When unweighable earth falleth on thee, thou shalt have no friend. 58. Farid, set not thy heart on mansions and wealth. Think upon the grave. Remember that place whither thou must go. 59. Farid, forsake these occupations from which no advantage resulteth, lest thou be put to shame in the court of the Lord. 60. Farid, perform the service of the Lord, dispel the doubts of thy heart. Darweshes require the endurance of trees. 61. Farid, black are my clothes, black my vestment. I wander about defiled by sin, yet men call me a darwesh. 62. That which hath been rotted by water will not bloom if it be kept immersed in it. Farid, the wife rejected by God ever and ever grieveth. 63. When a woman is a virgin, she is happy. When she is married, her troubles begin. Farid, she hath this regret that she cannot again become a virgin. 64. The swans have alighted in a little tank of brackish water. They dip in their bills, but drink not. They thirst to fly away. 65. The swans fly away and alight on a field of Kodra. People go to drive them away. Heedless people know not that swans eat not Kodra. 66. The birds which occupied the lake have flown away. Farid, the full lake shall also pass away, and the lotuses alone remain. 67. Farid, bricks shall be thy pillow. Thou shalt sleep beneath the earth. Worms shall eat thy flesh. How many ages shall pass away for thee, lying on one side? 68. Farid, the beautiful water pot shall be broken. The excellent rope shall part therefrom. In whose house shall the angel Azrael be a guest today? 69. The beautiful water pot shall be broken. The excellent rope shall part therefrom. How shall our friends, who were a burden to the earth, return now? 70. Saith Farid, thou dog who prayest not, this custom of thine is not good. Thou never goest to the mosque at the 5 times of prayer. 71. Rise in the morning, Farid, perform thine ablutions, repeat thy prayer, cut off the head which boweth not to the Lord. 72. What is to be done to the head which boweth not to the Lord? Burn it instead of firewood under the earthen pot. 73. Farid, where are the father and mother who gave thee birth? They have departed from thee. Art thou not yet convinced that the world is unstable? 74. Farid, make thy heart a plain, level all its hollows and hills, and the fire of hell shall never approach thee hereafter. Guru Arjan makes the following observation on this. 75. O Farid, the Creator dwelleth in creation, and creation in the Creator. Whom callest thou bad, since there is none beside Him? 76. Farid, if my throat had been cut on the same day as my navel string, I should not have fallen into such trouble, nor undergone such hardship. 77. My teeth, my feet, mine eyes, mine ears have ceased their functions. The body crieth aloud. Those acquaintances have gone away. 78. Farid, do good for evil. Clothe not thy heart with anger. Thus shall thy body not suffer pain, and thou shalt obtain everything. 79. Farid, the birds are guests in the beautiful garden of the world. The morning drum beateth. Make preparations for thy departure. 80. Farid, musk is distributed at night. They who sleep obtain no share of it. How can they whose eyes are asleep obtain it? 81. Farid, I thought I alone had sorrow, but the whole world also hath sorrow. When I ascended an eminence and looked, I found the same anguish in every house. Guru Arjan replies to this as follows. 82. Farid, in the midst of this fair earth there is a thorny garden, but the man favoured by the spiritual guide feeleth not its prickles. 83. Farid, few are bound who love the dear one. They who do find their lives happy and their persons beautiful. 84. O river, destroy not thy bank. Thou too must give an account. The river floweth whithersoever God willeth. 85. Farid, my days have passed in sorrow, and my nights in anguish. The ferryman standeth up and shouteth, the wind is driving the boat into the whirlpool. 86. The long river of life floweth and wasteth away its banks. If the ferryman be on the alert, what harm can the whirlpool do the boat? 87. Farid, there are 20 friends in words, but if thou search for one real friend, thou shalt not find him. I am suffering like smouldering fuel for my beloved friends. 88. Farid, these people are ever barking. Who can endure the continual annoyance? I have stopped mine ears, and I care not how much wind is blowing. 89. Farid, God's dates are ripe. Rivers of honey flow past them. The days that pass in enjoying them are profitable to my life. 90. Farid, my dry body hath become a skeleton. Ravens peck at the hollows of my hands and feet. Up to the present God hath not come to mine aid. Behold his servant's misfortune. 91. O ravens, you have searched my skeleton and eaten all my flesh, but touch not these 2 eyes, as I hope to behold my beloved. 92. O ravens, peck not at my skeleton. If haply you sit on it, then fly away. At any rate, eat not the flesh from where my Lord dwelleth in my skeleton. 93. Farid, the wretched tomb calleth out, O homeless, come home. You shall assuredly come to me. Fear not death. 94. How many have departed before my very eyes? Farid, men have different anxieties. and I have mine. 95. God saith, if thou reform thyself, thou shalt meet me. On meeting me, thou shalt be happy. Farid, if thou remain mine, all the world shall be thine. 96. How long shall the trees on the banks retain their place? Farid, if thou put water into a frail vessel, how long will it remain? 97. Farid, places have become empty, and their occupants gone below. The wretched graves take possession of souls. O Shaikh, say goodbye to your friends. Thou must depart today or tomorrow. 98. Farid, death hath no more a boundary than a river which washeth away its banks. When death appeareth, hell burneth in front. Terrible cries and sounds of woe are heard. To some all understanding hath come, others wander about recklessly. Men's acts in this world shall bear witness in God's court. 99. Farid, the crane sitteth on the bank of the river and sporteth. While it is sporting, the hawk suddenly striketh it. When the hawk of God striketh it, it forgetteth its sport. God hath accomplished such things as could never have been conceived. 100. A body of 3½ mans is moved by water and grain. Man entereth the world entertaining high hopes. When the angel of death cometh, he will break open every door. He will take man prisoner in the presence of his dear brethren. Lo, man departeth on the shoulders of 4 men. Farid, but the good acts he performed in this world shall be serviceable to him in God's court. 101. Farid, I am a sacrifice to those birds which live in the forests. They live on fruit, sleep on the ground, and never leave God's side. 102. Farid, the season changeth, the forests wave, the leaves drop off. I have searched in every direction, but found no place of rest. 103. Farid, tear thy coat into tatters, and wear a blanket instead. Adopt a dress by which thou mayest obtain the Lord. Guru Amar Das makes the following reflection on this couplet. 104. Why tear thy coat and put on a blanket? Nanak, if thine intentions be good, seated at home thou shalt find the Lord. Guru Ram Das has added the following. 105. O Farid, they who were proud of their greatness and possessed youth and untold wealth went away bare from the Lord like a hillock after rain. 106. Farid, terrible are the countenances of those who have forgotten the Name. Here they have abundant sorrow, and hereafter neither house nor home. 107. Farid, if thou awake not in the end of the night, thou art dead while alive. Even if thou forget God, God will not forget thee. Guru Arjan has here composed the following 4 couplets. 108. Farid, the bridegroom is merry, and far beyond all need. To be dyed with God is the true decoration. 109. Farid, treat pain and pleasure as the same. Banish sin from thy heart. Consider what pleaseth God as good, and thou shalt gain His court. 110. Farid, the world playeth as mammon maketh it play. Thou too playest with it. The soul for which God careth playeth not. 111. Farid, the heart is dyed with the world, though the world be worthless. To be like faqirs is difficult. Their excellence can only be obtained by perfect acts. Farid then proceeds. 112. Devotion in the beginning of the night is the blossom, in the end of the night the fruit. They who watch obtain gifts from the Lord. Guru Nanak offers the following objection to this doctrine. 113. Gifts are the Lord's. What can prevail against Him? Some who are awake receive them not. Others who are asleep He awaketh and conferreth presence upon. Farid continues to expound his doctrines. 114. Thou who searchest for thy spouse must have some fault in thyself. She who is called a good wife never looketh for any one else. 115. Make patience thy bow, patience thy bowstring, patience thine arrow, and the Creator will not allow thee to miss thy mark. 116. With such patience do the patient mortify their bodies. They thus become near God, but tell their secrets to no one. 117. This patience is the main object. If thou, O mortal, adopt it, thou shalt become a great river, and not a separate branch thereof. 118. Farid, to be a darwesh at God's gate is difficult. My love for God is only on the surface. Few there are who walk in the way of the darweshes at God's gate. 119. My body is heated like an oven. My bones burn like firewood. Were my feet to tire, I would walk on my head to meet the Beloved. Guru Nanak has here composed the following couplet. 120. Heat not thy body like an oven. Burn not thy bones like firewood. What harm have thy head and feet done thee? Behold the Beloved within thee. The following is by Guru Ram Das. 121. I go searching for the Friend, but the Friend is with me. Nanak, the unseen is not seen, but the pious show the way to Him. The following couplets have been contributed by Guru Amar Das. 122. The crane, seeing the swan swimming, conceived a desire to swim, but the poor crane was drowned, and its body turned upside down. 123. I thought he was a great swan, wherefore I associated with him. Had I known that he was only a wretched crane, I would never have touched him. 124. What mattereth it whether he whom God looketh on with favour be a swan or a crane? Nanak, if it please God, He can change a crow into a swan. Farid thus closes his spiritual instructions. 125. In the lake there is but one bird, while there are 50 snarers. This body is immersed in the waves of the world. O True One, my hope is in Thee. 126. What is that word? What those virtues? What that priceless spell? What dress shall I wear that I may captivate the spouse? 127. Humility is the word, forbearance the virtue, civility the priceless spell. Make these three thy dress, O sister, and the spouse shall come into thy power. 128. There are few saints who, though wise, are simple, though strong, are weak, and though having not, divide what they have. 129. Utter not one disagreeable word, since the true Lord is in all men. Distress no one's heart. Every heart is a priceless jewel. 130. All men's hearts are jewels. To distress them is by no means good. If thou desire the Beloved, distress no one's heart. End of section 23. Section 24 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6 by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 24. Bhikan. Bhikan was most probably Sheikh Bhikan of Kakori, who died in the early part of the Emperor Akbar's reign. The Persian historian Badauni has the following account of him. Kakori is a Pargana town in the Sarkar of Lucknow. Sheikh Bhikan was the most learned of the learned men of his time, abstemious and well versed in the holy law, while in devout piety even Abu Hanifa, the greatest of the Imams, was his inferior. For many years he was engaged in teaching and in instructing the people. He had committed the whole of the glorious Word of God to memory, according to each of the 7 methods of reading it. He used also to give instruction thereon. He reckoned his spiritual succession from Mir Sayyid Ibrahim of Irij, who was himself the most learned of the learned men of his time. The Shaikh would never mention the Sufi mysteries in a public assembly, but only in private to those who had been initiated into their secrets. And one of his sayings was, if the mystical profession of the unity of God be made public, it returns solely to him who uttered it, or to the learned few. He would not listen to singing, and outwardly reprobated it. He left numerous children who attained perfection, all of whom were adorned with the embellishments of rectitude, piety, wisdom, knowledge, and virtue. The compiler of these historical selections was honoured, in company with the late Muhammad Husain Khan, by being permitted to pay his respects to the Shaikh in Lucknow. It was the month of Ramzan, and a certain one brought to the Shaikh a work on logic, asking him to set him a task in that book. The Shaikh said, "You should read some book on divinity." The Shaikh's death occurred in the year A.H. 981, A.D. 1573-4. Badauni states that when Muzaffar Khan rose in revolt against Akbar, he on one occasion pitched his tent near the burial place of Sheikh Bhikan, no doubt with the object of praying for his intercession. for the success of his enterprise. Badauni also speaks of that pilgrim to the two sacred precincts, Haji Bhikan Basawani. This, however, may have been a different person from Sheikh Bhikan of Kakori. Whoever wrote the following hymns bearing the name of Bhikan in the Granth Sahib must have been some religious man who resembled Sheikh Farid II and was largely tinctured with the reformatory ideas then prevalent in India. It has been conjectured with some show of probability that Bhikan was a follower of Kabir. Only God's name can heal a diseased mind and body. Sorath. From mine eyes tears have flowed, my body hath become lean, and my hair the colour of milk. My throat is choked, I cannot utter a word. What can mortal now do? O sovereign Lord, gardener of the world, be thou my physician, and save thy saints. There is pain in my forehead, my body is burning, my heart is in anguish. Such pangs have been produced in me that there is no medicine for them. The name of God, a pure nectareous water, is the best medicine in the world. Bhikan prayeth, may I by the Guru's favour obtain the gate of salvation. The bliss which Bhikan finds in devotion. Such a name, a priceless jewel, I have obtained as the reward of meritorious acts. With several efforts I put the jewel in my heart. However much I tried to conceal it, it would not be concealed. Though one try to utter God's praises, they cannot be uttered. They are like sweets to a dumb person. My tongue is happy in repeating, mine ear in hearing, and my mind in thinking on God's name. Saith Bhikan, both mine eyes are satisfied. Wherever I look, there is God. End of section 24. Section 25 of the Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6, by Max Arthur Macauliffe. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Section 25, Sur Das. The Sur Das, one of whose hymns is found in the Granth Sahib, must not be confounded with Sur Das, a blind poet, famous in the north of India as the author of the Sur Sagar. The Sur Das with whom we are concerned was a Brahmin born A.D. 1528. On account of his beauty he was surnamed Madan Mohan, an epithet which means that he bewitched Cupid himself, and it was said that his external and internal eyes bloomed like the lotus flower. He became highly proficient in music, poetry, and kindred arts, and at the same time possessed all the joy, comfort, and pleasure to be obtained from esoteric divine knowledge. He sang of love, the first and greatest of the divine passions, which form the proper subjects of poetry. As soon as a verse issued from his mouth, it became celebrated. It is said that even in that age of bad roads and slow locomotion, it would reach 400 miles in a day, as if it had acquired wings for flight. The Emperor Akbar, who admired poetical talents, appointed Sur Das governor of the province of Sandia. Its capital is in the present district of Hardoi in Oudh. His administration appears to have been by no means successful. The ordinary land revenue of Sandia was 13 lakhs of rupees per year, but it was all spent by Sur Das in feeding holy men. When he heard of a contemplated inspection of his province and the collection of its revenue, he fled to avoid the consequences of his too profuse generosity. When the officials arrived to take the revenue, they found stones in the sealed treasure chests instead of money. Each chest was labelled with a slip containing these lines: Sandia yields its 13 lakhs. They're eaten up by men who pray. So Sur Das Madan Mohan now at dead of night hath run away. The Emperor, on reading these verses, said that eating was an excellent thing, but absconding was not a course to be commended. He was even pleased to learn Sur Das's generosity, and service to saints, and accordingly wrote an order pardoning his offence and expressing satisfaction at his devotion to holy men, but at the same time requesting him to appear before him. Sir Das said that it was 1,000 times better to wipe the shoes of holy men than be governor and revenue collector of a province, and he refused to appear before Akbar. Todar Mal, Akbar's prime minister, could tolerate it no longer. He said to the Emperor, "If such people can with impunity spend the money which belongs to the state and then abscond, there will be an end to all government." Under the circumstances, Akbar altered his resolution and ordered that Sir Das should be imprisoned. The poet's jailer was named Timur Das. The word Timur means night or darkness, and the word Das, if pronounced with a short vowel, means 10. From his prison the poet sent the Emperor the following couplet, which in the original contains a pun on the name of the jailer. One night brings darkness which a small lamp lights. O may the Sun King Akbar save me from 10 nights. Sir Das was immediately released from prison, and the governor of the jail obtained the sobriquet of 10 nights from the pun on his name. Sir Das subsequently wrote a stanza in which he prayed that the title of shoe holder to the saints of God might be conferred on him. A holy man, to put him to the test, told him he was going to see the great Lord Madan Mohan, also an epithet of Krishan, and asked him to keep watch over his shoes till he returned. Sir Das with great pleasure took up the saint's shoes and said, "Up to the present my wishes have only been expressed, but now they are fulfilled." The high priest, in collusion with the saint, several times sent a man to call Sir Das while holding the shoes. He refused to come until he had completed the menial service he had undertaken. The high priest and the saint were both highly pleased with Sir Das's devotion. Sir Das passed the remainder of his life in forest tracks, in the worship and contemplation of God, in the society of holy men. His shrine is near Banaras. The following hymn of Sir Das in the Sarang measure on the happiness of communion with God is found in the Granth Sahib. The people of God dwell with God. They dedicate unto Him their bodies and souls. All they possess they dedicate unto Him. While voicing His name, they become intoxicated with divine pleasure. On beholding Him, men become free from sin and obtain all things. After gazing on His beautiful face, there needs nothing else. He who forsaketh God and desireth any one else is like a leech on a leprous body. Sir Das, God hath taken my soul into His keeping and granted me deliverance in exchange. In the Granth Sahib of Bhai Bano, the following hymn of Sir Das in the same measure is also found. The ordinary Granth Sahib only contains the first line. The hymn was originally copied into the Granth Sahib of Kartarpur, but a pen was subsequently drawn through it and sulphate of arsenic rubbed over it for more complete erasure. The reason for its erasure has not been explained. The subject of the hymn is the old one: evil communications corrupt good manners, as stated by the old Greek poet Menander. O man, abandon the society of those who turn away from God. In association with them, evil desires are produced, and devotion is interrupted. What availeth it to give milk to a serpent to drink? It will not part with its poison. What availeth it to bathe an elephant in the river? He will soil his body as before. What availeth it to a crow to peck at camphor, or to a dog to bathe in the Ganges? What availeth it to a donkey to be smeared with fragrant aloes, or to a monkey to wear jewels on his body? Sinners are like stones, the arrows of divine knowledge pierce them not, even though a quiverful be discharged. Saith Sur Das, O God, this black blanket cannot be dyed another colour. Grant to thy Sikhs the gift of Sikhism, the gift of the Guru's instruction, the gift of faith, the gift of confidence in thee, and the gift of reading and understanding the holy Granth Sahib. End of Section 25. End of The Sikh Religion, Sacred Writings and Authors, Volume 6, by Max Arthur Macauliffe.